Now I can sell everything. Those words, spoken by my own flesh and blood, sliced through the somber silence of the funeral home like a butcher's knife. My daughter, Amanda, didn't even bother to whisper. Her voice carried across the room filled with black-clad mourners, their heads still bowed in prayer for my Robert. My husband of 42 years lay in his mahogany casket, his hands folded peacefully over his chest, while our daughter calculated the value of our home before his body was even cold. I froze, my fingertips still touching the edge of his casket. The weight of grief already crushing my chest suddenly doubled. Could everyone else hear what she'd just said? Did Pastor Williams catch those words as he closed his prayer book? I couldn't bear to turn around, to face the shocked expressions that must have mirrored my own internal screaming. The funeral home in Lakewood, Connecticut smelled of too sweet lilies and the musty pages of old hymn books. The air conditioning hummed too loudly in the silence that followed Amanda's declaration. Outside, October rain tapped against the stained glass windows, creating a rhythm that matched my racing heart. "Mom, we need to discuss what happens next." Amanda's manicured hand gripped my elbow, her blood-red nails digging into my skin through the black fabric of my dress. Her diamond bracelet caught the light as she leaned in close, her expensive perfume suffocating me. Daddy would want us to be practical about these things. Practical. That's what she called it. Practical to discuss selling the lakeside home Robert and I had built together while we were still signing his death certificate. Practical to plan which of our possessions would go to auction while the funeral flowers were still fresh. Practical to erase 47 years of memories before I'd even begun to process that he was gone. I looked into my daughter's eyes, searching for any trace of grief, any hint of the little girl who once crawled into our bed during thunderstorms. Instead, I found only cool calculation, as if she were appraising a property rather than standing at her father's funeral. "Not now, Amanda," I whispered, my voice threatening to crack. "Please, not today." She released my arm with a slight huff, straightening her designer black dress. "Fine. Tomorrow then. I've already contacted a real estate agent who specializes in lakefront properties. He says the market is hot right now." The room seemed to tilt slightly. I gripped the edge of Robert's casket to steady myself, feeling the polished wood beneath my fingertips. This couldn't be happening. Not today of all days. Not when I'd just watched them lower the love of my life into the ground, the earth still fresh on his grave. "Elizabeth." A gentle voice pulled me back. Sarah, my oldest friend, stood beside me, her weathered hand covering mine. "Come sit down, honey. You look like you might fall over." I let her guide me to the front pew, where I sank down, my legs no longer able to support me. From across the room, I caught my son-in-law Derek's eye. He quickly looked away, pretending to be engrossed in conversation with Robert's brother. He knew. Of course he knew. He was probably the one who'd found the real estate agent. People began filing past, offering condolences with awkward hugs and mumbled platitudes. "He's in a better place now. At least he didn't suffer. Call if you need anything." Empty words that bounced off me like hail on a tin roof. Through it all, I watched Amanda working the room, moving from group to group, her voice hushed but animated. Was she already telling them her plans for my home? Was she already dividing up our possessions in her mind? The home where she'd grown up, the possessions that told the story of our family's life together. "We should get you home," Sarah said, gathering my purse and the guest book. "You need to rest." Home. The word echoed in my mind. Would it still be home tomorrow? Next week? How long before Amanda erased every trace of Robert from our life together? As we walked toward the door, Pastor Williams caught my hand. "Elizabeth, I'm so sorry for your loss. Robert was a good man." "Thank you," I managed, the words barely audible. "If you need to talk, my door is always open," he added, concern etched across his kind face. I nodded, not trusting my voice anymore. What would I even say? That my daughter couldn't wait to cash in on her father's death? That she saw his passing as a financial opportunity rather than a devastating loss? Sarah helped me into her car, the leather seat cold against the back of my legs. Through the window, I watched Amanda and Derek heading to their sleek black BMW, heads bent together in conversation, planning, calculating, waiting. "Do you want me to stay with you tonight?" Sarah asked as she pulled out of the funeral home parking lot. I shook my head. "No, I need to be alone with his things, just for tonight." What I didn't say was that I needed to be alone with his things before they disappeared forever. before Amanda swept in and erased every trace of the life Robert and I had built together. As Sarah's car wound through the familiar streets of Lakewood, past the diner where Robert and I had Sunday breakfast for decades, past the park where we walked hand in hand as newlyweds, past the elementary school where Amanda had once been an innocent child with pigtails and missing front teeth, a strange calm began to settle over me. Robert had known this day would come. He had known exactly who our daughter had become. And knowing Robert as I did, after nearly half a century together, I suspected he had prepared for this moment. My practical, meticulous husband would never have left me unprotected. The thought carried me through the drive home, through Sarah's final hug at the door, through the deafening silence of the empty house. It carried me up the stairs to my bedroom, where his reading glasses still sat on the nightstand, his slippers still waited by the bed. It carried me to his office, where the scent of his aftershave still lingered in the air, and it guided my hand to the bottom drawer of his desk, where I knew he kept our most important documents. The folder was labeled simply, "In the event of my death." My fingers trembled as I opened it. My name is Elizabeth Caldwell. For 42 years, I was Mrs. Robert Caldwell, wife to the kindest man in Lakewood, Connecticut. Now, at 68, I'm a widow with salt and pepper hair I've never bothered to dye, arthritis in both knees, and a daughter who can't wait to sell my home out from under me. Our house sits on the edge of Lake Winnipesaukee, a 2-story colonial with blue shutters and a wraparound porch. Robert built most of it himself, adding rooms as our family grew and our needs changed. Every nail, every board, every paint stroke holds a memory. The oak tree in the backyard still bears the marks of the swing he hung for Amanda when she was 5. The kitchen still has the height chart where we marked her growth, year after year, until she decided at 13 that she was too old for such childish traditions. I wake up the morning after the funeral to the sound of rain on the roof. For just a moment, in that space between sleep and wakefulness, I reach for Robert. My hand finds only cold sheets, and reality crashes back like a wave. He's gone. After a 3-year battle with pancreatic cancer, after countless treatments and hospital stays and moments of false hope, he's gone. The digital clock reads 7:15 a.m. Amanda said she'd be here at 9 to discuss arrangements. 2 hours. I have 2 hours before she arrives with her real estate brochures and her calculated sympathy. 2 hours to find my footing in this new, Robertless world. I shuffle to the bathroom, avoiding my reflection in the mirror. I know what I'll see. Hollow eyes, skin pulled too tight across my cheekbones, hair that hasn't been properly styled in weeks. I've aged a decade in the past month alone. The final stages of Robert's illness consumed every ounce of my energy, every moment of my time. I hardly recognize myself anymore. Downstairs, I make coffee out of habit, filling Robert's favorite mug before remembering he's not here to drink it. I pour it anyway, setting it across from me at the kitchen table where he should be sitting, telling me about his plans for the day, or reading headlines from his iPad. Through the kitchen window, I can see the lake, its surface rippled by the falling rain. Robert and I used to take our coffee out to the dock on mornings like this, watching the mist rise off the water. God's breath, he called it. Now I sit alone at our kitchen table, 2 coffee mugs between us, and the silence of the house presses in from all sides. The folder from Robert's desk sits unopened before me. I haven't had the courage to look through it yet. Instead, I pick up my phone and scroll through the messages of condolence, responding to some, ignoring others. A text from Sarah. Coming over around noon to check on you. Need anything? I type back a quick, no thanks, and set the phone aside. Our wedding photo hangs on the wall opposite the kitchen table. Robert in his navy suit, me in my simple white dress, both of us laughing at something the photographer said. We were so young, 26 and 24, with our whole lives ahead of us. Neither of us came from money. Robert worked as an engineer at the local manufacturing plant. I taught 3rd grade at Lakewood Elementary. We saved for years to buy this plot of land by the lake, living in a tiny apartment, putting aside every extra penny. When Amanda was born 2 years into our marriage, we were still living in that apartment, still dreaming of the house by the lake. Robert would take her down to the water on weekends, pointing out the plot of land that would someday be ours. That's where your swing will go, he'd tell her. And there's where Mommy will plant her garden. By the time she was 4, we'd saved enough for a down payment. Robert designed the house himself, drawing up the plans at our kitchen table after Amanda had gone to bed. We moved in when it was barely more than a frame and some walls, cooking on a camping stove and using a garden hose for water until the plumbing was installed. Amanda thought it was a great adventure. The memories flow through me like the rain down the window panes. Amanda's first steps across this very kitchen floor, teaching her to ride a bike in the driveway, high school graduation parties on the back deck. The day she left for college, the car packed with everything she needed for her new life away from us. That was when she began to change. Or perhaps the change had started earlier, and we just hadn't noticed. The prestigious Boston College with its wealthy students, the summer internship at a New York investment firm, the designer clothes and expensive tastes, the increasingly infrequent visits home. Then she met Derek at a charity gala in Manhattan. Derek with his family money and his corporate law practice and his connections to all the right people. By the time they married at the Waldorf Astoria 5 years ago, Amanda had transformed into someone I hardly recognized. Someone who looked at our lakeside home not with nostalgia, but with a critical eye for what could be updated or modernized. The clock on the microwave reads 8:30, 30 minutes until Amanda arrives. I take a deep breath and finally open the folder from Robert's desk. Inside, I find several documents: our will, life insurance policies, bank account information, property deeds, and an envelope addressed simply to Lizzie, his nickname for me, one that no one else ever used. My hands shake as I open it, pulling out a single sheet of paper covered in Robert's neat handwriting. My dearest Lizzie, if you're reading this, then I've left you alone, something I swore I'd never do. I'm so sorry, my love. I fought as hard as I could to stay with you, but some battles can't be won. You're stronger than you know. You always have been. It's one of the countless reasons I've loved you since the moment I saw you in that coffee shop all those years ago. I've made arrangements to protect you and our home. Amanda has changed over the years in ways that break my heart. I've tried to reach her, to remind her of the values we raised her with, but money and status have become more important to her than family. The will is clear. Everything we own is yours, to do with as you see fit, for as long as you live. The house, the savings, all of it. Amanda can't touch any of it without your consent. I've also set up a trust fund that will provide for your needs. Richard Stevens has all the details. Call him as soon as you can. Don't let her bully you, Lizzie. Don't let her rush you into decisions. This is your home, our home, and it will remain so until you decide otherwise. I wish I could protect you from the pain of grief, but that's beyond even my power. Just know that the love we shared for 42 years doesn't end with my last breath. It lives on in you, in every corner of the home we built together, in every sunrise over the lake. All my love, now and always, Robert. Tears blur my vision, dropping onto the letter and smudging the ink. My practical, thoughtful Robert. Even in death, he's trying to protect me, to give me time to grieve before facing Amanda's plans. The doorbell rings. I wipe my eyes, tuck the letter back into the envelope, and gather the folder. Amanda is early. Of course she is. She's always been impatient. I take one last look at Robert's coffee mug, still full and growing cold. I hear you, love, I whisper. I'm stronger than I know. Then I go to answer the door. Amanda stands on the porch, sleek and polished, despite the early hour and the pouring rain. Her blonde hair, dyed to hide the brown she inherited from Robert, is pulled back in a perfect chignon. Her black trench coat bears the logo of some designer I don't recognize but know must be expensive. Behind her, Derek waits in their BMW, engine running, probably on a business call. Mom. She kisses the air near my cheek, careful not to smudge her makeup. You look terrible. Did you sleep at all? Without waiting for an answer, she brushes past me into the house, her heels clicking on the hardwood floors Robert had installed by hand. She carries a leather portfolio embossed with her real estate friend's company logo. I brought some market comparisons for properties in the area, she says, already spreading documents across the kitchen table, pushing aside Robert's untouched coffee mug. Lake houses are going for a premium right now. If we list quickly, we could have offers within days. I stand in the doorway, watching her efficient movements. This is my daughter, my only child, the baby I nursed at my breast, the little girl who once made me Mother's Day cards with glitter and construction paper. Now she's a stranger in expensive clothes, planning to dismantle my life before I've even begun to mourn. Would you like some coffee? I ask, more to interrupt her sales pitch than out of genuine hospitality. She barely glances up. No time. I have a lunch meeting in Hartford at noon. She taps a glossy brochure with her red nail. This is the real estate agent I mentioned, Tom Greenfield. He specializes in luxury lakefront properties. He's already lined up 3 potential buyers who are interested in seeing the place this weekend. This weekend? The words come out as a whisper. Amanda, your father's funeral was yesterday. She sighs, the sound heavy with impatience. Mom, this is exactly why I'm handling everything. You're obviously not thinking clearly right now. Grief is clouding your judgment. My judgment? I repeat, a spark of anger flaring beneath my shock. Yes. She looks up at me now, her expression a practiced mix of sympathy and determination. You need to be practical. This house is much too big for you alone. The maintenance, the taxes, the upkeep on the dock and boat. You can't manage it, and frankly, you don't need to. We can sell for at least $2 million in this market. You can buy a nice little condo in one of those senior communities and still have plenty left over. Senior communities. As if I'm ready to be packed away with other old people, playing bingo and waiting to die. I'm 68, not 98. I'm not selling the house, Amanda. She blinks, momentarily thrown off script. Don't be ridiculous. Of course you're selling. It makes perfect financial sense. This is my home. Your father and I built it together. Amanda waves a manicured hand dismissively. It's just a house, Mom. Bricks and wood. And it's half mine anyway. No, I say, Robert's letter giving me strength. It's not. Excuse me? Her perfectly penciled eyebrows arch high on her forehead. Your father's will leaves everything to me. The house, the savings, everything. To do with as I see fit. A flash of something, anger, disbelief, crosses her face before she composes herself. That can't be right. Daddy and I discussed this. He understood the practical aspects of selling. Did he? I cross to the counter and pick up the folder. Because according to his will, and the letter he left me, he made arrangements specifically to prevent a hasty sale. Amanda stands, smoothing her skirt with both hands, a gesture she's had since childhood, something she does when she's trying to control her temper. Let me see that. I hesitate, then hand her the will but keep Robert's letter to me. Some things are too private, too precious to share with someone who wouldn't understand their value. She scans the document, her face hardening with each paragraph. When she reaches the end, she looks up, her blue eyes, so like Robert's, cold with fury. This is ridiculous. I'm his daughter. I'm entitled to my inheritance. And you'll receive it, I say, after I'm gone. Until then, everything stays as it is. That could be 20 years, she exclaims, as if the thought of her mother living a long life is an inconvenience rather than a blessing. God willing, I reply quietly. She tosses the will onto the table and pulls out her phone. Derek, come in here, she snaps, then ends the call without waiting for a response. Moments later, Derek appears at the door, his tailored suit slightly damp from the dash through the rain. Everything okay? He asks, though his tone suggests he already knows it isn't. Daddy changed his will, Amanda says, thrusting the document at her husband. He left everything to Mom. Everything. We can't sell until after she's gone. Derek skims the will, his expression unreadable. Unlike Amanda, he's always been harder to decipher. It seems pretty straightforward, he says finally. The estate passes to Elizabeth for her lifetime, then to you upon her death. This is a mistake, Amanda insists. Daddy wouldn't do this to me. To you? The words escape me before I can stop them. Your father didn't do anything to you, Amanda. He made provisions to protect me and our home. Protect you from what? She demands, her voice rising. From financial security? From practicality? From being rushed into decisions before I'm ready to make them? I say, thinking of Robert's words. Don't let her bully you. Amanda turns to Derek, appealing to him as the lawyer in the family. We can contest this, right? There must be grounds, diminished capacity or undue influence or something. Derek shifts uncomfortably. It would be difficult. The will is properly executed, witnessed, and your father was of sound mind until very near the end. So you're just going to let her keep everything? Let this house sit here, losing value, while she rattles around in it alone? Amanda's voice has taken on the shrill quality it gets when she's not getting her way. The same tone she used at 7 when we wouldn't buy her the expensive doll she wanted. At 16 when we refused to let her take the car to a party where there would be no parents. It's not about letting me keep anything, Amanda, I say, finding a steadiness in my voice that surprises me. It's already mine. It's been mine and your father's for 38 years. We worked for it, sacrificed for it, built it with our own hands. And now he's gone, she says, her voice cruel with impatience. And you're being selfish and impractical. The accusation stings like a slap. Selfish? To want to stay in my own home? To have time to grieve before making life-altering decisions? Yes, selfish. Amanda's composure shatters completely now. Derek and I have plans for that money. We've already put a deposit on a penthouse in Boston. We're meeting with private school administrators next week for Sophia. Sophia, my granddaughter, 8 years old and already being molded in her mother's image. Designer clothes, private tennis lessons, summer camps in Europe. I haven't seen her in months. Amanda always has an excuse why they can't visit. They're too busy. The drive is too long. Sophia has commitments. I didn't know you were moving to Boston, I say, another piece of my heart breaking. Amanda waves this away as irrelevant. The point is, we've made commitments based on this inheritance. Commitments that require liquidity. I'm sorry about your penthouse, Amanda, I say, and I am sorry. Sorry that material things have become so important to her. Sorry that she's already spending her inheritance before her father is even cold in his grave. But this house isn't for sale. This is unbelievable. She gathers her real estate brochures with jerky movements, shoving them back into her portfolio. After everything Derek and I have done for you and Daddy, I blink in genuine confusion. What exactly have you done for us, Amanda? She looks at me as if I'm being deliberately obtuse. We've visited. We've called. We've included you in our lives despite how awkward it can be with our friends. Awkward. Because we're not wealthy enough, not sophisticated enough, not impressed enough by her country club memberships and charity gala appearances. I see, I say, though what I really see breaks my heart. My daughter is a stranger to me now. A stranger who views her father's death as a financial opportunity and her mother as an obstacle to be removed. This isn't over, Amanda warns, grabbing her coat. We'll be speaking with our lawyer. There are ways to challenge this. Derek, at least, has the grace to look uncomfortable. Amanda, maybe we should... Don't start, Derek. Not now. She cuts him off with a glare, then turns back to me. I'm very disappointed in you, Mom. Daddy would be too. It's this last barb, the invocation of Robert's disappointment, that finally breaks through my shock and hurt. Robert, who loved this house, who wrote me a letter specifically to protect it. Robert, who knew exactly what Amanda might try to do. No, I say, my voice quiet but firm. Your father would be disappointed in you, Amanda, for seeing dollar signs instead of memories, for treating your mother like an inconvenient obstacle rather than a grieving widow, for coming here the day after his funeral to stake your claim on what was never yours to begin with. She stares at me, momentarily speechless. Then her face hardens into a mask of cold fury. Enjoy your empty house, Mom. I hope it keeps you warm at night. With that, she storms out, Derek following in her wake after an awkward nod in my direction. I watch through the window as they climb into their luxury car and speed down the driveway, gravel spraying from beneath the tires. When they're gone, I sink into a kitchen chair, suddenly exhausted. My eyes fall on Robert's cold coffee cup, still sitting where I placed it hours ago. Oh, Robert, I whisper to the empty kitchen. What happened to our little girl? The only answer is the steady rhythm of rain on the roof and the distant call of a loon on the lake. The rain continues for 3 days after Amanda's visit, as if the heavens themselves are mourning Robert. I move through the house in a fog of grief, touching his things, wearing his sweater, sleeping on his side of the bed where his scent still lingers on the pillow. On the 4th day, the sun breaks through the clouds, casting diamond-bright reflections on the lake. I sit on the dock with my morning coffee, watching a pair of loons glide across the water. Robert and I used to keep a log of the loons we spotted, noting their calls and behaviors. The leather-bound journal still sits on the bookshelf in his study, his neat handwriting recording years of observations. The sun on my face feels like a caress, like Robert telling me it's time to emerge from the darkness of these first days without him. Time to remember not just the loss, but the life we shared. I was 24 when we met, teaching 3rd grade and living in a tiny apartment with a college roommate. Robert came to career day to talk about engineering. Tall, with those startling blue eyes and an easy laugh, he captivated my classroom of 8-year-olds with his explanation of how bridges stand up against the forces of wind and water. "It's all about balance," he told them, building a small model bridge from popsicle sticks, finding the perfect equilibrium between strength and flexibility. After class, he asked me to coffee. 3 months later, he proposed on a sailboat in the middle of this very lake, pulling out a tiny diamond ring that had cost him 3 months' salary. "It's not much," he apologized, "but I promise you, Lizzie, someday we'll build a house right on this lake. A place for us, for the family we'll have together." We were married in the white-clappered church in town, with a reception in my parents' backyard. No designer gown or fancy catering, just a simple white dress my mother helped me make, potluck dishes prepared by friends and neighbors, and wildflowers picked that morning from the fields around town. Our honeymoon was a week camping by this lake, dreaming about the home we'd build someday. Robert sketched plans in a notebook while I read paperback novels. At night, we made love under the stars, young and hopeful and certain of our future together. The early years were lean but happy. Our apartment was small, our furniture mostly secondhand, our entertainment simple: walks in the park, picnics by the lake, board games on rainy evenings. We saved every extra dollar toward our dream house fund, celebrating each milestone with a bottle of cheap champagne. When I discovered I was pregnant 2 years into our marriage, we converted our tiny home office into a nursery, painting the walls sunshine yellow because we decided to wait to learn the baby's gender. Robert built a crib himself, working evenings and weekends, sanding each piece to silky smoothness so our baby wouldn't get splinters. Amanda Rose Caldwell was born on a spring morning, all pink and perfect with a shock of dark hair and eyes as blue as her father's. Robert cried when they placed her in his arms, overcome with a love so profound it transformed him in an instant from husband to father. "She's perfect," he whispered, touching her tiny fingers with his large, calloused hand. Our little miracle. For the first years of Amanda's life, we continued to save for our dream home. Robert worked overtime whenever it was offered. I took on tutoring jobs after school hours, grading papers while Amanda napped. Robert's parents would babysit on weekends so we could work on house plans or visit potential properties. Amanda was 3 when we finally found this land. 2 acres with 200 feet of lake frontage, a gentle slope down to the water, and enough mature trees to provide shade and privacy. The price was at the very top of our budget, leaving almost nothing for actual construction, but we couldn't pass it up. "We'll figure it out," Robert assured me. "We'll build it bit by bit, as we can afford it." And that's exactly what we did. Robert designed a house that could be constructed in phases. We started with just enough to make it livable: a kitchen, living room, bathroom, and 2 bedrooms. We moved in when it was barely more than a shell, camping out in our own home while Robert worked on it evenings and weekends. Friends from church and work would come on Saturdays to help raise walls or install windows. I'd make huge pots of chili or stew, and we'd all eat together on sawhorses and planks set up as makeshift tables. Amanda toddled around in tiny overalls and a plastic hard hat, helping her daddy by handing him nails or holding the end of a measuring tape. Those were the happiest years of our lives. Hard, exhausting, sometimes frustrating when money was tight or projects took longer than expected, but deeply, profoundly happy. We were building not just a house, but a life together, each nail and board a testament to our commitment to each other and our family. As Amanda grew, so did our home. When she was 7, Robert added a proper dining room where we could host Thanksgiving dinner for our extended family. When she was 10, he built a 3rd bedroom so she could have friends sleep over. For her 13th birthday, he surprised her with a window seat in her bedroom, complete with bookshelves and cushions in her favorite color, purple. Through it all, Amanda was our joy, our little helper, our dreamer. She collected shells and interesting stones from the lakeshore, carefully arranging them on her windowsill. She helped me plant flower gardens around the property, digging in the soil with her small hands, delighting in each bloom. She learned to swim in the lake, to fish off our dock, to identify the birds that nested in our trees. Summer evenings, we'd sit on the dock as a family, watching the sunset turn the lake to liquid gold. Robert would tell stories about the constellations, as they appeared one by one in the darkening sky. Amanda would lean against his shoulder, her eyes wide with wonder, asking questions about stars and planets and the vastness of the universe. Winter nights, we'd gather around the stone fireplace Robert had built, playing board games or reading aloud from favorite books. Amanda would fall asleep on the couch, and Robert would carry her up to bed, her long limbs dangling as she grew from little girl to lanky teenager. The change in her was so gradual we barely noticed it happening. The teenage years brought normal turbulence, mood swings, arguments about curfews, eye-rolling at our embarrassing parental behavior. But there was something else too, a subtle shift in priorities. Amanda began to notice what her friends had that we didn't. Brand name clothes, the latest electronic gadgets, vacations to exotic locations. Her Christmas and birthday wish lists grew more expensive each year. She became increasingly self-conscious about our home, despite its lakefront location, and the love built into every corner. "Why can't we get central air conditioning?" she'd demand during hot summer days. "Megan's house has it. Why do we have to buy groceries at the discount store? Everyone can tell from my lunch that we're cheap." Robert would try to explain our values, that we prioritized experiences over possessions, that we believed in living within our means, that true wealth wasn't measured in brand names or square footage. Sometimes Amanda seemed to understand. She'd help with projects around the house, or join us for hiking trips instead of asking for mall excursions. But the pull of peer influence was strong, and we could feel her slipping away from our simple lifestyle. College was the turning point. Amanda was academically gifted. She got that from Robert, and won a partial scholarship to Boston University. We were so proud, even as we worried about covering the remaining tuition. We took out a second mortgage on the house, determined to give her every opportunity we hadn't had. She came home that first Thanksgiving a changed person. Her Connecticut accent had softened, replaced with the flat vowels of her wealthier classmates. She wore clothes we couldn't possibly have afforded to buy her. She talked about classmates who vacationed in the Hamptons and owned horses, and had trust funds waiting when they graduated. "You don't understand how people live, Mom," she told me in the kitchen, as I prepared our traditional family recipes. "This," she gestured around our home, the kitchen with its handmade cabinets and the dining table Robert had crafted from local cherry wood. "This isn't how successful people live." The words stung, but I tried to hide it. "There are many kinds of success, Amanda," I said, kneading bread dough with perhaps more force than necessary. "Your father and I have built a life we're proud of." She gave me a look that mingled pity with impatience. "You could have had so much more if you'd been more ambitious. Both of you." I didn't know how to explain to her that we had exactly what we wanted. A home filled with love, work that fulfilled us, enough to be comfortable without excess, that we'd chosen this life deliberately, not settled for it out of lack of ambition. Robert tried, in his patient way. "Mandy," he said, using his old nickname for her as they sat on the dock the next morning. "True wealth isn't about stuff. It's about relationships, about finding meaning in how you spend your days. That's a nice story to tell yourself when you've settled for less," she replied, her voice gentler with him than with me, but still edged with that new condescension. "But I want more, Dad. I'm going to have more." And she did get more, at least in material terms. She graduated with honors, landed a job at a prestigious financial firm in New York, moved into a sleek apartment in Manhattan with 2 roommates from equally wealthy backgrounds. Her visits home became less frequent, shorter when they did happen, filled with thinly veiled suggestions about how we could update our house, or criticism about our outdated lifestyle. Then she met Derek at a charity gala she couldn't have afforded to attend on her own salary, but had been invited to by a client. Derek came from old money, New England banking wealth that had cushioned generations of his family through economic ups and downs. He had the right schools, the right clubs, the right connections. Amanda brought him home to meet us just once before they were engaged. He was polite but distant, clearly uncomfortable in our lakeside home with its hand-built charm and lack of pretension. He checked his expensive watch repeatedly, made business calls from our dock, and asked bewildered questions about why we hadn't developed our lakefront property into something more lucrative. Their wedding was at the Waldorf Astoria in New York, a lavish affair we could never have afforded. Derek's parents paid for most of it, making it clear with subtle comments that this was necessary because we couldn't possibly contribute meaningfully to such an event. Amanda wore a designer gown that cost more than our first car. The guest list included celebrities, politicians, and business leaders, but few of our relatives and almost none of Amanda's childhood friends. Robert and I felt like strangers at our own daughter's wedding. I wore a dress I'd had made by a local seamstress. It looked homemade next to the couture gowns of the other women. Robert's best suit, carefully pressed for the occasion, marked him immediately as not belonging to this world of wealth and privilege. At the reception, Amanda introduced us to her new in-laws and their friends with an almost apologetic air. "My parents," she'd say, then quickly add something to explain us away. Mom was a teacher before she retired. Dad built their house himself. Little snippets meant to frame our ordinary lives as quaint or charmingly rustic, rather than embarrassingly middle class. That night, back in our hotel room, Robert held me as I cried. "We've lost her," I sobbed into his shoulder. "She's ashamed of us." "No," he said, but I could hear the doubt in his voice. "She's just finding her way. She'll remember who she is, where she came from." But she didn't. The years after her marriage saw Amanda transform completely into someone we barely recognized. She and Derek bought a mansion in Greenwich, Connecticut, close enough that they could have visited often, but far enough that they rarely did. When Sophia was born, we drove to Greenwich to meet our granddaughter, staying in a hotel because Amanda said the baby was on a strict schedule that would be disrupted by house guests. Over the years, we saw Sophia only a handful of times, usually at carefully orchestrated visits where Amanda controlled every aspect of our interaction. We weren't allowed to babysit. Amanda hired professional nannies instead. Our birthday and Christmas gifts were often returned or exchanged for items from Amanda's approved list of brands and stores. Robert never stopped trying to maintain the connection. He sent handmade toys for Sophia, a dollhouse modeled after our lake house, a tiny sailboat that really floated, a set of building blocks made from scraps of the beautiful woods he worked with. We don't know if Sophia ever received them, or if Amanda intercepted these homemade gifts she deemed too simple for her daughter. When Robert was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer 3 years ago, Amanda's response was practical rather than emotional. She sent information on treatment centers and specialists, but rarely came to visit during his long illness. When she did come, it was brief, an hour or two between other appointments, often bringing Sophia only to leave her in the car with Derek, because the sick room was no place for a child. During his final months, as Robert grew weaker and the treatments failed one by one, Amanda began talking about next steps and practical arrangements. She brought up selling the house several times, always framing it as concern for me. "You can't manage this place alone, Mom. The stairs, the maintenance, it's not practical." Robert never commented on these conversations directly, but I noticed him spending more time in his office after Amanda's visits, going through papers, making phone calls when he thought I wasn't listening. Now I understand what he was doing, protecting our home, protecting me from Amanda's practical arrangements. As I sit on the dock with my coffee, watching the sun sparkle on the lake, memories washing over me like waves, I understand something else too. Robert knew Amanda better than I allowed myself to. He saw the changes in her that I kept making excuses for. He recognized that her concerns about my welfare were really concerns about her inheritance, and he loved her anyway, just as I do. Despite everything, despite the cruel words at his funeral, despite her attempt to sell my home out from under me, I love my daughter. She is part of Robert, part of me, even if she's lost her way. I take a sip of coffee, now grown cold in the morning air. A fish jumps nearby, sending ripples across the glassy surface of the lake. Somewhere in the trees behind me, a woodpecker drums against a trunk, the sound echoing across the water. This is home. This is where Robert and I built our life together. This is where our memories live, in every board and nail, in every tree we planted, in every sunset we watched from this very dock. Amanda may have forgotten the value of this place, of the life we built here, but I haven't. And as I sit surrounded by the physical manifestation of our love, I make a silent promise to Robert. I will protect what we built together. I will honor his final wishes. And somehow, someday, I will try to help our daughter remember who she really is. Not the woman in designer clothes who sees dollar signs instead of memories, but the little girl who once collected shells on this lakeshore and fell asleep listening to her father's stories about the stars. A week passes, then 2, The initial shock of grief settles into a dull, persistent ache that follows me through my days. I establish new routines: coffee on the dock if weather permits, walks along the lake shore, afternoons in Robert's study going through his papers. Friends drop by with casseroles and concern, sitting with me for an hour or two before returning to their own lives. Sarah comes most often, bringing groceries, helping with household tasks I've neglected, simply being present when the silence grows too heavy. She knew Robert almost as long as I did. We all grew up in Lakewood, though Sarah left for college in California before returning in her 30s after a divorce. "Have you heard from Amanda?" she asked one afternoon as we sort through a box of Robert's old photographs. I shake my head. Not since she stormed out that day after the funeral. Sarah purses her lips but says nothing. She's never approved of Amanda's transformation, though she's too kind to say so directly. "She'll come around," I say, though I'm not convinced. She's grieving too, in her own way. Sarah looks skeptical, but nods. Of course she is. We work in companionable silence for a while, sorting photos into albums. Robert was meticulous about documenting our life together: family vacations, Amanda's milestones, the gradual construction of our home. "Oh, look at this one," Sarah says, holding up a photo of Amanda at about 10, standing proudly beside a bird feeder she and Robert had built together. Her smile reveals missing front teeth. Her eyes, so like her father's, shine with pride. "She was so happy then," I say softly, taking the photo. "So connected to this place." "People change," Sarah replies, her tone gentle. "Not always for the better." The doorbell interrupts our conversation. Sarah rises. "I'll get it." "You keep going with these photos." I hear murmured voices at the door. Then Sarah returns with a confused expression. "It's some man asking for you. Says he's a real estate agent." My heart sinks. "Tom Greenfield?" Sarah nods. "You know him?" "Amanda's real estate friend." I sigh, setting down the photos. I suppose I'd better see what he wants. Tom Greenfield stands in my entryway, a sleek portfolio under one arm, an artificial smile plastered across his face. He's perhaps 40, with carefully styled hair and a tan that seems too perfect for Connecticut in spring. "Mrs. Caldwell," he says, extending his hand. "So sorry about your loss. I worked with Mr. Caldwell on several projects over the years." This is a lie. Robert never mentioned this man, and he certainly never worked with him on any projects. I shake his hand briefly but don't invite him further into the house. "What can I do for you, Mr. Greenfield?" His smile doesn't waver. "I understand from Amanda that you might be considering selling the property. I've taken the liberty of preparing some market analysis materials for you to review." "Amanda was mistaken," I say firmly. "The house is not for sale." He chuckles as if I've made a charming joke. Of course. No one expects you to make decisions so soon after your loss. But it never hurts to have information, does it? May I come in for just a few minutes to show you what properties like yours are commanding in the current market?" "No, thank you." I remain blocking the doorway. As I told Amanda, I have no intention of selling our home. His smile tightens almost imperceptibly. "Mrs. Caldwell, with all due respect, lakefront properties like yours are at a premium right now. I have several pre-qualified buyers who would pay well above market value for this location. We're talking about a potential windfall that could set you up very comfortably for the rest of your life." "I am already comfortable," I reply, "and this house is not on the market. Not now, not in the future. I appreciate your time, but this visit is unnecessary." He pulls a business card from his pocket and holds it out. "Take my card, at least. Your circumstances may change, and I'd hate for you to miss out on the current seller's market." To be rid of him, I take the card. He gives a little nod, as if he's accomplished something significant. "I'll be in touch, Mrs. Caldwell. Amanda asked me to keep her updated on your situation." My situation. As if widowhood is a temporary inconvenience that will eventually give way to reason, by which he means selling my home to the highest bidder. "Good day, Mr. Greenfield," I say, closing the door before he can respond. When I return to the living room, Sarah raises her eyebrows in question. "Amanda sent him," I explain, tossing his business card onto the coffee table. "Apparently she told him I'm selling the house despite what I said." Sarah's expression darkens. "That girl needs a reality check. She's persistent. I'll give her that. I sink back into my chair, suddenly tired. Robert always said she got that from me. Stubbornness is only a virtue when it's in service of something worthwhile, Sarah replies, returning to the photo albums. Speaking of persistence, Richard Stevens called while you were at the door. Said he's been trying to reach you. Richard Stevens is Robert's attorney and our friend of 30 years. I'd called him after finding Robert's letter, and he'd confirmed everything. The will, the trust fund, the legal protections Robert had put in place. I'd been meaning to meet with him for a more detailed explanation, but hadn't found the energy yet. I'll call him back, I promise, though I'm not sure when. Each day still feels like wading through deep water, every task requiring more effort than it should. The rest of the week passes quietly. I continue sorting through Robert's things, not ready to remove them but needing to touch them, to organize them, to keep my hands busy while my heart adjusts to his absence. I call Richard and set up a meeting for the following Monday. On Sunday, I decide to attend church for the first time since the funeral. The congregation at Lakewood Community Church has been part of our extended family for decades. Robert and I were married there. Amanda was baptized there. The members have supported us through every hardship and celebrated every joy. I dress carefully in a simple navy dress and Robert's favorite pearl necklace, a 20th anniversary gift. As I fasten the clasp, I can almost feel his fingers brushing against my neck, hear his voice telling me how beautiful I look. The tears come then, as they still do without warning. I let them fall, no longer bothering to wipe them away. Grief, I am learning, has its own timeline, its own rhythm. Fighting it only makes it worse. The church parking lot is nearly full when I arrive. I sit in my car for a moment, gathering courage. This will be difficult. The first time attending without Robert beside me. The first time facing the entire community as a widow rather than a wife. But these people knew Robert, loved him as I did. Being among them might help. Pastor Williams greets me at the door with a gentle hug. It's good to see you, Elizabeth. We've been praying for you. Thank you, I manage, already feeling the curious, sympathetic gazes of congregation members behind him. He walks me to a pew near the front, the same pew where Robert and I sat nearly every Sunday for decades. Several people reach out to touch my arm or shoulder as I pass, murmuring condolences. I nod, unable to form words. The service begins with familiar hymns, the congregation's voices rising and falling in patterns that comfort with their predictability. I stand and sit at the appropriate times, my mouth forming words I've known since childhood, though my mind drifts. Robert should be beside me, his deep bass blending with my alto. His hand should be holding mine during prayers. His smile should be greeting mine when Pastor Williams makes one of his gentle jokes. After the service, I steel myself for the social hour in the church basement. Coffee, homemade cookies, and well-meaning questions about how I'm holding up. I consider slipping out a side door, but know that isolation won't help the healing process. Robert would want me to stay, to let our community support me. I'm making my way toward the stairs when I hear a familiar voice that stops me in my tracks. Such a tragedy. And the house, that beautiful lakefront property just sitting there when it could be put to better use. Amanda, my daughter is here, in church, though she hasn't attended a service in Lakewood since before her wedding. She stands in a small circle of older congregation members, women who've known her since she was in Sunday school. Mom is being surprisingly stubborn about it, she continues, not seeing me frozen several feet away. Dad left everything to her, you know. Everything. Which means the house is just going to decay while she rattles around in it alone. Your mother might not be ready for such big decisions, Mrs. Peterson says gently. She taught piano to Amanda for 10 years and has always had a soft spot for her. Grief takes time. Amanda makes a dismissive gesture with one manicured hand. Of course, but there are practical considerations too. The property taxes alone are astronomical. And the maintenance, it's far too much for a woman her age to manage. Your father kept that place up beautifully, Mr. Jenkins comments. He and Robert went fishing together often, sharing a small boat and thermoses of coffee on early morning excursions. Dad was handy, Amanda concedes. Mom isn't. She can barely change a light bulb. This stings particularly because it's so untrue. I may not have built cabinets like Robert, but I've always been capable with basic home maintenance. I painted every room in our house. I refinished furniture. I helped install the hardwood floors and built the stone path leading down to the dock. I'm sure you're just looking out for your mother's best interests, Mrs. Peterson says, though her tone suggests she's not entirely convinced. Exactly. Amanda's voice brightens. It's all about Mom's quality of life. A nice condo in a managed community would be so much better for her. No stairs to navigate, no worries about maintenance, people her own age for companionship. Your mother's not exactly decrepit, Mr. Jenkins says with a frown. She's what, late 60s? That's hardly nursing home territory. Amanda laughs, the sound artificially light. Of course not, but it's about planning ahead, being practical. I've heard enough. I step forward, and the small group falls silent as they notice me. Amanda's expression shifts rapidly from surprise to something like guilt before settling into practiced concern. "Mom!" she exclaims, moving to embrace me with air kisses near both cheeks. "I was just telling everyone how worried I am about you all alone in that big house." "So I heard," I reply, keeping my voice level despite the anger and hurt roiling inside me. "Funny, I don't recall asking for your concern or your advice about where I should live." The circle of church members shifts uncomfortably. Public confrontations are not the norm in our small community. "I'm just looking out for you," Amanda says, her voice taking on the patient tone one might use with a difficult child. "As your daughter, it's my responsibility to make sure you're taken care of now that Dad is gone. I'm perfectly capable of taking care of myself," I reply. "And if I need help, I have friends here who will assist me because they care about me, not because they're eager to sell my home." Amanda flushes, glancing around at the watching faces. "Mom, you're upset. Grief is making you irrational. We should discuss this privately." "We already did discuss it privately," I remind her, "the day after your father's funeral, when you brought real estate brochures to my kitchen table. My answer hasn't changed." She steps closer, lowering her voice. "You're making a scene," she hisses. "These are your friends. Don't embarrass yourself." "These are my friends," I agree, looking around at the familiar faces watching us with varying degrees of concern and curiosity. "People who knew your father and me for decades. People who helped us build our home. People who understand what that house means to us." "Meant," Amanda corrects sharply. "What it meant to you and Dad. He's gone now, Mom. It's just a house. It will never be just a house," I say, my voice breaking slightly. "It's every dream your father and I ever had. It's where we raised you. It's where we built our life together." She sighs dramatically. "And now that life is over, it's time to be practical." Practical. I repeat the word, suddenly tired of hearing it. "Your father was the most practical man I've ever known. He built our home with his own hands because it was practical to save on labor costs. He grew vegetables in our garden because it was practical to have fresh food. He installed solar panels on our roof 20 years ago because it was practical to reduce our electricity bills." I take a deep breath, aware that more people have gathered, drawn by the tension in our voices. But he also understood that practicality isn't everything, that some things have value beyond their price tag. Our home was his gift to me, to us, and now you want to erase it, to turn it into cash as if that's all it ever was. "You're being emotional," Amanda says dismissively. "This is exactly why I'm worried about you making financial decisions right now." Something snaps inside me. The last thread of patience, perhaps, or the final barrier holding back words I've swallowed for years. "Yes, I'm emotional," I say, my voice stronger now. "I'm grieving the love of my life. I'm also grieving the daughter who used to understand the value of things that can't be bought or sold." Gasps from the onlookers. Amanda's face flushes deeper. "I'm trying to help you," she insists, but there's less conviction in her voice now. "No," I counter quietly. "You're trying to help yourself, to your inheritance, to the proceeds from selling my home, the home your father specifically protected in his will because he knew." My voice catches. "He knew exactly what you would try to do." Amanda's eyes widen slightly. For the first time, she looks genuinely thrown. "What are you talking about?" "Your father left me a letter," I tell her. "He knew you'd push me to sell. He knew you'd try to rush me into decisions before I was ready. That's why he set up the trust, why he made sure everything stayed in my name. He wouldn't," she begins, then stops, uncertainty flickering across her face. "He did," I say simply, "because he knew you better than I allowed myself to." For a moment, something like hurt crosses Amanda's features, quickly masked by indignation. "So you're just going to stay in that house forever?" rattling around with your memories while it slowly falls apart around you? That's my decision to make, I reply. Not yours. She glances around at the watching crowd, clearly realizing she's lost this round. Fine, she says tightly. Do what you want, but don't call me when the roof starts leaking or the dock needs repairs. I won't, I assure her, though the thought of not being able to call my own daughter when I need help sends a fresh pain through my heart. Amanda turns on her heel and pushes through the gathered church members, head high, back rigid with anger or embarrassment or both. I watch her go, a strange numbness replacing the anger I felt moments ago. Around me, the crowd begins to disperse, murmuring among themselves. Some avoid my gaze, uncomfortable with having witnessed such a personal confrontation. Others offer supportive touches or sympathetic looks. Sarah appears at my side, slipping her arm through mine. That was quite a speech, she says softly. I shouldn't have done it, I reply, the numbness giving way to regret. Not here, not in front of everyone. Sometimes public embarrassment is the only thing that gets through to people like Amanda, Sarah says pragmatically. Robert would have been proud of you for standing up for yourself. Would he? Robert was always the peacemaker, the one who found compromise, who believed in second chances and benefit of the doubt. But he was also the one who protected our home in his will, who wrote me a letter specifically warning me about Amanda's intentions. Come on, Sarah says, guiding me toward the stairs. Let's get some coffee, then I'm taking you to lunch. As we leave the church, I glance across the parking lot. Amanda sits in her BMW, phone pressed to her ear, gesturing animatedly as she speaks, reporting to Derek, no doubt, planning their next move. The thought should worry me, but somehow it doesn't. For the first time since Robert's death, I feel a strange new strength flowing through me. The confrontation with Amanda, though painful, has awakened something, a determination to protect what matters, to honor Robert's wishes, to stand firmly in the truth of who I am and what our home represents. My husband is gone, but his love remains, in the house he built for us, in the life we created together, in the legal protections he put in place to ensure that legacy endures. And for now, that knowledge is enough to carry me forward, one day at a time. 3 days after the church confrontation, I finally meet with Richard Stevens at his law office in downtown Lakewood. The red brick building with its brass nameplate has housed his practice for over 30 years. Inside, little has changed since my first visit decades ago. The same wooden paneling, the same leather chairs, even the same elderly receptionist, Mrs. Winters, though her hair has gone from salt and pepper to pure white. Elizabeth. Richard rises from behind his desk as Mrs. Winters shows me in. It's good to see you. Richard attended Yale Law with Robert's older brother and settled in Lakewood after falling in love with both the town and a local girl, now his wife of 40-plus years. He handled our wills, our property transactions, even Amanda's minor legal trouble when she backed into a parked car at 17 and panicked, leaving the scene before reporting it. Thank you for making time, I say, settling into one of his visitor chairs. For Robert's widow? Always. He sits back down, his expression somber. I'm so sorry, Elizabeth. Robert was a good man. One of the best I've known. Yes, I say simply. What more is there to say? Words can't capture what I've lost. Richard seems to understand. He nods, then opens a thick file folder on his desk. I assume you're here about Robert's will and the trust he established. Yes, Amanda is persistent about selling the house. A shadow crosses Richard's face. So Robert anticipated correctly. He was concerned she might try to rush you into decisions. She had a real estate agent at my door a week after the funeral, I confirm. And she's been telling people at church that I can't manage the house alone. Richard's eyebrows rise. That was fast, even for Amanda. The comment surprises me. It suggests Robert discussed Amanda's character with Richard in some detail. Had my husband confided concerns about our daughter that he'd kept from me? The thought stings, though I understand why he might have done so. I've always defended Amanda, made excuses for her behavior, held on to the hope that she'd find her way back to the values we raised her with. Robert was very clear about his wishes, Richard continues, tapping the file. Everything goes to you. The house, the investments, the insurance policies. Amanda inherits only after your death. And even then, there are conditions. Conditions? This is new information. Richard nods. Robert added a codicil to his will about 6 months ago. after his last round of treatments failed and he knew time was limited. It stipulates that after your passing, Amanda cannot sell the lake house property for a minimum of 2 years. She must maintain it in good condition during that time. I blink, processing this. He was trying to make her spend time there, to remember. That was my impression. Richard agrees. He hoped that being in the house, living with its history, might reconnect her with the values he felt she'd lost. A lump forms in my throat. Even facing death, Robert was thinking ahead, trying to reach the daughter who had drifted so far from us. His hope that she might find her way back touches me deeply. There's more, Richard continues. Robert set up a trust that provides you with a monthly income, enough to maintain the house, pay the property taxes, and live comfortably. Amanda can't touch any of those funds. She mentioned at church that the property taxes are astronomical, I say, implying I can't afford them. Richard makes a dismissive noise. The taxes are substantial for lakefront property, but not beyond what the trust can easily cover. Robert made very sound investments over the years. You're well provided for, Elizabeth. Relief washes through me. Not that I doubted Robert's planning, but hearing the confirmation from Richard eases one worry. I can keep our home without financial strain. What about maintenance? I ask. Amanda seems convinced the house will fall apart without Robert to care for it. A small smile touches Richard's lips. Robert thought of that too. The trust includes a dedicated fund for home maintenance and repairs. He even made a list of local contractors he trusted, people who won't overcharge you or suggest unnecessary work. Of course he did. My meticulous, thoughtful husband, trying to smooth my path even after he was gone. There's also a letter of instruction, Richard adds, pulling a sealed envelope from the file. Robert asked me to give this to you if Amanda began pushing for a sale. It contains names of property attorneys who specialize in elder rights, just in case she tries to claim you're incompetent to manage your affairs. The suggestion sends a chill through me. Would she go that far? Richard's expression grows serious. Robert was concerned she might. The letter includes his observations of your mental clarity and decision-making capacity in the months before his death, essentially a testimony to your competence, should you need it. I take the envelope with trembling fingers. The thought that my own daughter might try to have me declared incompetent feels like a physical blow. Would she really attempt something so drastic, so hurtful? I don't want to believe she'd do that, I say softly. Neither did Robert, Richard replies. But he believed in being prepared for all possibilities. We spend the next hour going through the details of Robert's estate, the trust structure, the investment portfolio, the insurance payouts. Richard explains everything clearly, making notes of my questions, providing copies of all relevant documents. By the end, I feel more confident about my financial position and the legal protections Robert put in place. As our meeting concludes, Richard hesitates, then says, "There's one more thing, Elizabeth. Something not in the official documents." I wait, curious. Robert came to see me about 2 weeks before he passed. He was very weak, but his mind was still sharp. He told me that if Amanda became too aggressive about the house, I should remind her about the garden shed box. He said you'd know what that meant. The garden shed box. The phrase triggers an immediate memory. A wooden box, about the size of a shoebox, that Robert kept on the top shelf of our garden shed. It held small treasures Amanda had given him over the years. Handmade Father's Day cards, childish artwork, the first fish hook she'd baited herself, a father-daughter dance program from her elementary school. I know what it is, I tell Richard, but I don't understand why that would deter Amanda from pursuing the house. Richard shrugs. Robert didn't elaborate. He just said it might help her remember who she used to be. The drive home from Richard's office is short. Lakewood is small enough that nothing is more than a 15-minute drive, but I take the long route along the lakeshore. The water glitters in the spring sunshine, sailboats dotting the surface like bright butterflies. Robert and I used to sail when we were younger, before building the house consumed our free time. Later, we taught Amanda to sail in a small secondhand sunfish. She was a natural, fearless with the wind and waves. Where had that fearless, joyful girl gone? When had she transformed into the cold woman who saw her father's death as a financial opportunity? The woman who might even try to have me declared incompetent to get what she wanted? As I pull into our driveway, I notice something different about the house. The front door stands slightly ajar. I'm certain I locked it before leaving for Richard's office. My pulse quickens. A break-in, but in broad daylight, in our safe community? I consider calling the police, but decide to check first. Perhaps Sarah stopped by, she has a key, and forgot to fully close the door when she left. I approach cautiously, listening for sounds from inside. The house seems quiet. I push the door open wider and step into the entryway. "Hello?" I call. "Is someone here?" No answer, but I hear a faint noise from upstairs, a creak of floorboards perhaps, or the sound of a drawer closing. Fear prickles along my spine. Should I leave? Call for help? But what if it's just Sarah, not hearing me from upstairs? "Sarah?" I call louder. "Is that you?" Again, no answer, but now I'm certain I hear movement upstairs. I grab the heavy flashlight we keep in the hall closet, the closest thing to a weapon within reach. Heart pounding, I climb the stairs slowly, trying to make as little noise as possible. The sound seems to be coming from our bedroom, my bedroom now. The door stands half open. I approach with caution, flashlight raised, and push the door wider with my foot. Amanda stands by my dresser, several of my jewelry boxes open before her. She whirls at my entrance, her expression shifting from concentration to shock, to a forced casualness. "Mom!" she exclaims. "You startled me. What are you doing here?" I demand, lowering the flashlight but keeping it in my hand. "And why are you going through my jewelry?" She gives a small laugh, closing one of the jewelry boxes. "I was looking for a photo album, actually, from when I was little. I wanted to show Sophia some pictures of her grandfather. The lie is so transparent it's almost insulting. The photo albums have never been kept in my bedroom, let alone in my jewelry boxes. And Amanda has shown virtually no interest in connecting Sophia to Robert or our family history. The albums are in the living room bookcase," I say flatly. "They always have been. Try again." Her smile falters, then disappears entirely. "Fine. I was looking for Mom's pearls. The ones Grandma left you. My mother's pearls. A single strand of good but not exceptional quality that my father had given her on their 25th anniversary. They hold tremendous sentimental value, but aren't particularly valuable in monetary terms." "Why?" I ask, genuinely puzzled. "You've never shown any interest in those pearls, and you have much finer jewelry of your own." Amanda shifts uncomfortably. "They're family heirlooms," I thought. "With Dad gone, it might be time to pass them down." Another lie. Amanda has rejected every family heirloom I've ever offered her, calling them dated or provincial. "You broke into my house to steal a pearl necklace?" I press, still trying to make sense of this. "I didn't break in," she protests. "I used the spare key from the flower pot, and I wasn't stealing anything. I was taking inventory." The truth clicks into place suddenly. "You're cataloging valuables, things you plan to sell after I'm gone." She doesn't deny it. "Someone needs to know what's here. Dad had expensive tools in his workshop. There might be valuable antiques mixed in with all this stuff." She gestures vaguely around the bedroom. "So you let yourself in while I was out to make a list of things worth selling?" The hurt is so profound I can barely breathe. "Without asking me, without even telling me you were here. You're being difficult about everything," she says defensively. "I'm trying to plan responsibly. By sneaking around my house?" I move to the dresser, closing the jewelry boxes she's left open. "By going through my personal things without permission?" She straightens, her posture becoming rigid. "As your daughter and heir, I have a right to know what assets exist. You have no rights to anything in this house while I'm alive," I say, my voice surprisingly steady despite the storm of emotions inside me. "And you certainly have no right to enter my home without permission or go through my belongings." "I'm trying to help," she insists, though her tone lacks conviction. "To be prepared." "No," I counter, a new clarity washing over me. "You're trying to stake your claim, to lay groundwork for selling everything the moment I'm gone. Maybe even before, if you could find a way." She doesn't deny this either. Instead, she glances toward the jewelry boxes. "Those pearls should stay in the family. Sophia should have them someday." "Sophia barely knows me," I point out. "You've made sure of that. Why would my mother's pearls mean anything to her?" Amanda has no answer for this. She brushes past me toward the door. "I need to get going. Derek and I have dinner plans." "Amanda," my voice stops her at the threshold. "Don't ever come into my house without my knowledge again. I'll be changing the locks and security codes." She turns, her expression a mix of indignation and something else. Embarrassment, perhaps, at being caught in such a blatant invasion. "This is ridiculous. I'm your daughter." "Yes, you are," I agree sadly, "which makes your actions even more hurtful." For a moment, I think I see a flicker of shame cross her face. Then it's gone, replaced by her usual mask of cool detachment. You're overreacting. I'll call you next week when you've calmed down. She leaves without another word. I hear her footsteps on the stairs, the front door opening and closing, the sound of her car starting in the driveway. Only when the engine noise fades into the distance do I sink onto the edge of the bed, the full impact of what just happened washing over me. My daughter broke into my home to catalog items for future sale. She went through my personal belongings without permission. She lied about her intentions when caught. The violation feels profound, intimate in a way that her previous actions haven't been. I check my jewelry boxes to see if anything is missing. Everything seems to be in place, including my mother's pearls. But I notice something else. Robert's wedding ring, which I've kept in my jewelry box since his death, has been moved from its velvet pouch to the main compartment. Had Amanda been considering taking it? The thought makes me feel physically ill. Moving on autopilot, I go downstairs and call a locksmith. They can come tomorrow morning to change all the locks. Then I call Sarah, needing to share this latest betrayal with someone who will understand. She did what? Sarah's outrage is immediate and validating. That's beyond inappropriate, Elizabeth. That's criminal. I don't want to press charges against my own daughter, I say wearily. Of course not, Sarah agrees. But you absolutely should change the locks, and maybe consider a security system. A security system. To protect myself from my own child. The thought is so painful I almost can't bear it. I'll come over, Sarah offers. You shouldn't be alone right now. No, I decide, surprising myself. No, I think I need some time alone, to process everything. After we hang up, I walk through the house, checking to see if Amanda disturbed anything else. Nothing seems obviously out of place, but I can't shake the feeling of violation. She's been in my space, touching my things, making plans for their disposal as if I'm already gone. I end up in Robert's workshop, a converted garage space where he spent countless happy hours crafting furniture, building cabinets, repairing whatever needed fixing around our home. His tools hang neatly on pegboards, his workbench tidy even in his absence. I've maintained it exactly as he left it, not ready yet to dismantle this space that was so quintessentially his. Amanda's words echo in my mind. Dad had expensive tools in his workshop. She's right about that much. Robert invested in quality tools that have held their value. Some of his handmade wooden clamps and jigs would be prized by other craftsmen. His collection of antique planes, lovingly restored and maintained, would fetch a good price from collectors. But the monetary value misses the point entirely. These tools built our home. They crafted the furniture we've lived with for decades. They fixed broken toys and created birthday gifts and constructed a life together. They are extensions of Robert's hands, his creativity, his care for our family and our home. I run my fingers along the smooth wooden handle of his favorite hammer, feeling the slight indentations where his fingers gripped it thousands of times. This is what Amanda doesn't understand, or chooses not to understand. The value of these things isn't in their resale price, but in the stories they tell, the memories they hold, the love they represent. My gaze falls on the garden shed visible through the workshop window, the garden shed box. Richard's words come back to me. Robert said it might help her remember who she used to be. Moving with new purpose, I leave the workshop and cross the yard to the shed. It's a simple structure Robert built when Amanda was small, just large enough to store our gardening tools and lawn equipment. I open the weathered door and step inside, inhaling the familiar sense of soil and grass clippings, and the faint tang of gasoline from the lawnmower. The box sits where it always has, on the top shelf beside seed packets and garden gloves. I reach up and take it down carefully, brushing away a light coating of dust. The wooden box is Robert's handiwork, maple with dovetail joints and a hinged lid. Amanda's name is carved into the top in his precise lettering. I carry it back to the house and set it on the kitchen table. For a long moment, I simply look at it, remembering the day Robert made it. Amanda was about 6, and she'd presented him with a treasure, a smooth stone from the lakeshore that she'd painted with clumsy butterflies. "I need a special place to keep all your gifts," he'd told her. That weekend, he crafted this box while she helped, handing him tools and chattering about all the treasures she planned to find for him. Slowly, I open the lid. Inside, neatly arranged, are the artifacts of Amanda's childhood. Construction paper cards with wobbly letters declaring, "I love you, Daddy." A small clay pot she made in 2nd grade, glazed an uneven blue, the program from her first piano recital, where she'd played Für Elise with more enthusiasm than accuracy, a pressed flower from the bouquet she picked for his birthday when she was 9, the fishing hook she learned to bait herself, carefully wrapped in tissue paper, a Father's Day coupon book promising hugs whenever you want, and help with yard work, and one day with no complaining. Beneath these childhood mementos are items from her adolescence, fewer in number but still meaningful. The ticket stub from the father-daughter dance her senior year of high school. A photo of her and Robert at her high school graduation, his pride evident in his wide smile, his arm around her shoulders. A thank you note she'd written when he and I took out a second mortgage to help pay her college tuition. I promise to make you proud. I'll never forget the sacrifices you've made for me. Tears fill my eyes as I gently touch each item. Here in this box is the essence of who Amanda used to be. Loving, grateful, connected to her family and our values. The girl who wrote these cards, who made these gifts, who promised never to forget her parents' sacrifices. Where had she gone? When had money and status and appearances become more important than these precious connections? And suddenly, I understand why Robert mentioned the box to Richard. It's not just a collection of childhood mementos. It's evidence, tangible, undeniable evidence, of the relationship Amanda once had with her father, with our family, with this home. It's a physical reminder of the values she was raised with, the love she once reciprocated so freely, the person she was before wealth and status changed her. I gather the items carefully and return them to the box. Then I sit at our kitchen table, watching the late afternoon light play across the surface of the lake through the window. A new sense of clarity and purpose fills me, pushing back the fog of grief and hurt that has clouded my days since Robert's death. My husband knew what he was doing, with his will, with his letter to me, with his mention of this box. He was giving me tools not just to protect myself, but perhaps to reach Amanda, to remind her of who she once was. I've been passive in the face of her transformation over the years, making excuses, avoiding conflict, hoping she'd find her way back to us on her own. But that approach hasn't worked. Perhaps it's time for a different strategy. Perhaps it's time to stop simply defending against Amanda's attempts to sell our home and start actively trying to reconnect her with what it represents. The path forward isn't entirely clear yet, but for the first time since Robert's death, I feel a sense of agency returning. I may have lost my husband, but I haven't lost my voice, my strength, or my determination to protect what matters. And what matters most now isn't just keeping our physical home, but preserving what it represents. The love, the values, the family connections that Amanda has forgotten, but that live on in this house, in Robert's workshop, in this simple wooden box filled with childhood treasures. Tomorrow the locksmith will come. Tomorrow I'll begin changing my approach. Tomorrow I'll start finding my way forward in this new reality. But tonight, I'll sit with these memories, these tangible reminders of the daughter I once knew and still believe exists somewhere beneath the polished exterior she presents to the world. Tonight, I'll let myself hope that she might find her way home again, not to claim her inheritance, but to reclaim the parts of herself that she's lost along the way. ACT 7. Revealed Secrets. The locksmith arrives promptly at 9 the next morning. He's young, early 30s perhaps, but works efficiently, replacing all the exterior locks and providing me with new keys. When he hands me the bill, I notice the company name, Caldwell Security and Locksmith. Any relation to Robert Caldwell? I ask, curious about the shared surname. The young man's face brightens. Yes, ma'am. He was my uncle, my dad's brother. I blink in surprise. You're Jake's son, Michael? He nods, smiling. That's right. Uncle Robert helped me start this business 5 years ago, gave me a loan when the banks wouldn't, taught me about running a small business. His expression grows somber. I was at the funeral, but I didn't get a chance to speak with you. I'm really sorry for your loss, Mrs. Caldwell. Uncle Robert was a great man. Thank you, I say automatically, still processing this information. Robert had mentioned helping his nephew start a business, but I hadn't connected it to the locksmith I'd called randomly from the phone book. He talked about you all the time, Michael continues, putting his tools away. Always said you were the best decision he ever made. The simple statement brings tears to my eyes. I blink them back, not wanting to make this young man uncomfortable. Anyway, he says, zipping up his tool bag, I put my direct number on the invoice. Call me anytime if you need anything, not just locks. Uncle Robert would want me to look out for you. After he leaves, I sit at the kitchen table with my coffee, turning over this encounter in my mind. Robert helped his nephew start a business. He maintained that connection even though we rarely saw Jake's family. They lived in Massachusetts, and visits were infrequent. It makes me wonder what other connections Robert maintained that I might not be fully aware of. He was always the more social one between us, the one who remembered birthdays and anniversaries, who kept in touch with old classmates and distant relatives. My coffee grows cold as I realize how much I relied on Robert for those social connections. He was the one who organized our calendar, who suggested dinner invitations, and reminded me about community events. Without him, I've been drifting, responding to others' initiatives rather than creating my own. The thought leads me to another realization. I've been passive in my grief, allowing it to wash over me, to isolate me. Robert wouldn't want that. He'd want me to reach out, to maintain connections, to build new ones, even as I mourn him. With sudden decision, I pick up my phone and call Richard Stevens. Elizabeth. He answers warmly. How are you today? Better, I say, and realize it's true. Richard, I've been thinking about Robert's connections in the community, the people he helped, the relationships he maintained. He was certainly well connected. Richard agrees. Everyone knew and respected Robert. I'd like to understand more about that, I tell him, about the extent of his involvement in the community, the people he helped, like his nephew Michael. Richard is quiet for a moment. Are you asking for a specific reason? I'm trying to see the full picture of my husband's life, I explain. There are aspects I may have missed, being so focused on our home, our immediate family. I see. There's a thoughtful quality to Richard's voice. You know, Robert did more for this community than most people realize. He never wanted recognition or praise, just did what he thought was right. Could you tell me more? I ask. Maybe over lunch? We arranged to meet at Lakewood Diner, a local institution where Robert and I had Sunday breakfast almost every week for decades. As I get ready to leave, I feel a sense of purpose that's been missing since his death. I'm not just going through the motions today. I'm actively seeking understanding, connections, a way forward. The diner looks exactly as it has for 30 years. Chrome-edged tables, vinyl booths, the same waitresses who know regular customers by name and remember their usual orders. Marge, who's been serving breakfast here since before Amanda was born, greets me with a warm hug. It's good to see you out and about, Elizabeth, she says, leading me to a booth by the window, the same one where Robert and I always sat. The usual? The usual. Coffee, whole wheat toast, and 2 eggs over easy. Robert always had the Denver omelet with extra cheese and hash browns. For a moment, the familiar setting without his presence across from me threatens to overwhelm me with grief. Just coffee for now, I manage. I'm meeting Richard Stevens. Marge nods and moves away, giving my shoulder a sympathetic pat as she passes. Richard arrives a few minutes later, sliding into the booth across from me. Robert's spot. He must see something in my expression because he asks gently, "Would you prefer I sit beside you instead of across?" The thoughtfulness of the question touches me. No, it's fine. I need to get used to seeing new faces in old places. We order. Richard gets the club sandwich he always chooses, and makes small talk until Marge brings our food and retreats. So, Richard says, spreading his napkin across his lap, you want to know about Robert's community connections? I nod. I've realized how much I relied on him for our social calendar, for maintaining relationships. I don't want to lose those connections now that he's gone. Richard takes a bite of his sandwich, chewing thoughtfully before responding. Robert was involved in more than you might realize. The obvious things, of course. The church building committee, the lake conservation board. But there was more. Like helping his nephew start a business? I prompt. Yes, exactly like that. Robert believed in investing in people, not just stocks and bonds. Richard takes a sip of his iced tea. Did you know he was an anonymous donor to the Community College Scholarship Fund? Every year he funded 2 full scholarships for local kids who couldn't otherwise afford to attend. I set down my coffee cup in surprise. I knew he donated, but not that much. Richard nods. He didn't want recognition. Said it would embarrass the students if they knew where the money came from. What else? I ask, hungry now for these glimpses of my husband's generosity I hadn't fully appreciated. Over the next hour, Richard reveals aspects of Robert's community involvement I'd either forgotten or never fully understood. how he quietly paid for repairs to elderly neighbors' homes when they couldn't afford the work, how he mentored young men from disadvantaged backgrounds, teaching them carpentry skills in his workshop on weekends, how he contributed to emergency funds for families facing medical crises or job losses. Robert believed this community raised him after his parents died. Richard explains. He felt an obligation to give back, to strengthen the connections that had supported him. The picture emerging is of a man even more generous, more deeply connected to his community than I'd realized. And I'd been married to him for 42 years. How had I missed the full extent of his quiet philanthropy? Had I been so focused on our home, on Amanda, on my own pursuits that I'd failed to see this dimension of the man I loved? Don't look like that, Richard says gently, apparently reading my expression. Robert didn't hide these things from you. He just didn't broadcast them. He believed good work should be done quietly. But I should have known, I insist. I was his wife. You knew the essence of him, Richard counters. That's what mattered to Robert, that you understood his heart, even if you didn't track every expression of it. His words comfort me somewhat, but I still feel a pang of regret for not having appreciated the full scope of Robert's community impact while he was alive. There's something else, Richard says after a pause. Something Robert asked me to tell you if the time seemed right. I think today might be that time. I wait, curious and slightly apprehensive. Robert set up a foundation, Richard explains. The Caldwell Community Trust. It's funded by a portion of his life insurance, a substantial portion. The foundation's purpose is to continue the community support he provided during his lifetime, but on a larger scale. I stare at him, trying to absorb this information. A foundation? When did he do this? He started planning it about a year after his diagnosis, when it became clear the cancer wasn't responding to treatment as hoped. We finalized the paperwork 6 months ago. Richard reaches into his briefcase and pulls out a folder. He named you as the primary trustee, with me as the secondary. The foundation will need leadership, Elizabeth. Robert hoped you might find purpose in continuing his community work. I take the folder with trembling hands, opening it to find legal documents establishing the Caldwell Community Trust. The mission statement, written in Robert's precise language, outlines a commitment to supporting education, housing security, and entrepreneurship within Lakewood and surrounding communities. There's more, Richard says quietly. The foundation offices will be in the boathouse. The boathouse? I repeat, confused. Our boathouse is a simple structure, barely large enough for our small rowboat and some fishing gear. Richard smiles. Not your current boathouse. Robert purchased the old Anderson property next door about 8 months ago. It includes that large boathouse with the second-story apartment. He was planning to renovate it into foundation offices and a community workshop space. The Anderson property. Our elderly neighbors had moved to assisted living last year, but I had no idea Robert had purchased their land when it went on the market. It's a beautiful piece of property adjacent to ours, with an impressive boathouse built in the 1920s when the lake was a popular resort destination. He bought it without telling me? I'm having trouble processing this information. Robert and I had always made major decisions together, especially financial ones. He wanted it to be a surprise, Richard explains. A legacy project for your retirement years. Something meaningful you could build together after Amanda was settled and he retired from engineering. The cancer changed those plans, of course. Robert never got to retire, never had the chance to work on this legacy project with me. Instead, he laid the groundwork and left it in my hands to carry forward. I don't know what to say, I admit, feeling overwhelmed. This is a lot to take in. I know, Richard acknowledges, and there's no pressure to act immediately. The foundation is established, the funding secured. It can wait until you're ready. But can it? As the initial shock fades, I feel something stirring inside me, a spark of interest, of possibility, a foundation dedicated to continuing Robert's community support, a renovation project that would honor his love of building, of creating spaces for people to gather and grow, a purpose beyond grief, beyond merely defending our home from Amanda's attempts to sell it. Does Amanda know about this? I ask suddenly. Richard shakes his head. Robert was explicit that she not be informed until you decided the time was right. He was concerned she might see the foundation as diminishing her inheritance, which of course it does. Money that might otherwise have passed to Amanda upon my death will instead support community projects through the foundation. No wonder Robert kept it quiet. I'd like to see the boathouse, I decide. Today, if possible. Richard looks pleased. I have the keys with me. We can go after lunch if you'd like. Half an hour later, we're walking the winding path through the woods that separates our property from what is now apparently also our property, the Anderson place. The spring afternoon is warm, sunshine filtering through new leaves, birdsong filling the air. The path emerges from the trees near the lake shore, providing a stunning view of the water and, just ahead, the Anderson boathouse. It's a grand old structure, larger and more architecturally interesting than I remembered. 2 stories tall, with large windows overlooking the lake, an expansive deck wrapping around 3 sides, and a boat slip that could accommodate vessels much larger than our little rowboat. The upper floor had been an apartment where the Andersons' adult children stayed during summer visits. Richard unlocks the main door, and we step inside. The first floor is essentially a large garage for boats, with high ceilings and concrete floors. Currently empty except for some abandoned fishing equipment, it echoes with our footsteps. Wide double doors open directly onto the lake, designed for boats to pull in and out with ease. Robert envisioned this space as a workshop, Richard explains, gesturing around, where community members could learn building skills, where young people could work on projects under mentorship. I can see it immediately. Workbenches along the walls, tool stations, perhaps a small wood-turning area like Robert had in his own workshop. I can almost hear the sounds of sawing and hammering, the voices of people learning, creating, building together. We climb the exterior stairs to the second floor. Richard unlocks another door, and we enter what was once the Andersons' guest apartment. It's a large, open space with vaulted ceilings and a wall of windows facing the lake. A small kitchen occupies one corner, a bathroom off to the side. The space is dusty and in need of updating, but the bones are beautiful. Hardwood floors, exposed beams, a stone fireplace along one wall. Foundation offices up here, Richard says. Meeting space, perhaps a small library of resources on community development, education, entrepreneurship, subjects Robert was passionate about. I walk to the windows, taking in the spectacular view of the lake. From here, I can see our house, my house, through the trees. Our dock extends into the water not far from the Anderson dock. The properties connect so naturally, it's as if they were always meant to be joined. He left plans, Richard adds, pulling a rolled tube of paper from his briefcase, preliminary sketches for the renovation. He worked on them during his last months, when he was too weak for physical projects, but his mind was still active. I take the tube with reverent hands, but don't open it yet. That feels like something to do alone, when I can take the time to absorb Robert's final creative vision without an audience. Why didn't he tell me about this? I ask softly, still trying to understand why Robert would keep such a significant project secret. Richard considers the question before answering. I think he wanted to protect you from Amanda's reaction. He knew she wouldn't approve of assets being directed to the foundation, rather than to her inheritance. By keeping it quiet, he spared you that conflict while he was alive and fighting his illness. It makes sense, in a sad way. Robert shielding me from difficult conversations with our daughter, perhaps hoping the foundation might eventually help bridge the gap between Amanda's values and our own. There's one more thing you should see, Richard says, leading me back outside to the deck. He points to a small building near the water's edge that I'd overlooked initially, the original boathouse, from the 1890s. The Andersons used it for storage, but it's a historical structure, built by one of the lake's first permanent residents. We make our way down to the tiny boathouse, really just a shed with a small dock attached. Richard unlocks the weathered door, and we step into a time capsule of lake history. Fishing equipment from different eras hangs on the walls. Old life preservers, wooden oars, maps of the lake from the early 1900s. It's dusty, but remarkably well preserved. Robert was especially excited about this, Richard says. He talked about creating a small lake history museum, preserving the stories and artifacts of this community. I touch an ancient fishing net hanging on the wall, trying to absorb the scope of what Robert had envisioned. Not just a home for us, but a legacy for the community. Not just financial security for me, but meaningful work to carry forward. It's overwhelming, I admit. Take your time, Richard advises. None of this has to happen immediately. The properties are secured, the foundation established. You can move forward at whatever pace feels right. We lock up the buildings and walk back toward my house in companionable silence. My mind is racing with all I've learned today. Robert's extensive community involvement, the foundation, the Anderson property with its renovation plans. It's a lot to process, especially while still navigating the raw grief of his absence. As we approach my driveway, I notice a familiar black BMW parked there. Amanda. My stomach tightens with apprehension. Would you like me to stay? Richard offers, also spotting the car. I consider it, then shake my head. No, I need to handle this myself. But thank you for everything today, Richard. It's given me a lot to think about. He hands me the keys to the Anderson property and the tube of Robert's plans. Call me anytime. I mean that, Elizabeth. Robert was my friend, not just my client. I'm here to help however I can. I watch him drive away, then turn toward my house with a deep breath, steeling myself for another confrontation with Amanda. But as I approach the front steps, I realize I feel different today. Instead of dreading her demands, I feel stronger, more grounded. The revelations about Robert's community work and his plans for the foundation have shifted something inside me. Amanda sits on the front porch swing, scrolling through her phone. She looks up as I approach, her expression unreadable. You changed the locks, she says without preamble. Yes, I confirm, climbing the steps. After finding you going through my jewelry without permission, it seemed prudent. Right. She has the grace to look slightly embarrassed, though she quickly masks it with indignation. I'm your daughter. I shouldn't need permission to visit my childhood home. Visit, no. Enter when I'm not here and go through my personal belongings, yes. I sit in the wicker chair across from the swing, setting the tube of plans beside me. Why are you here, Amanda? She tucks her phone into her designer purse. Derek and I have been talking about the house situation. There is no house situation, I reply calmly. I'm living in my home, which your father left to me. End of story. Mom, be reasonable. Her tone shifts to the patient one she uses when she thinks I'm being difficult. This property is worth millions in today's market. It's sitting here, an appreciating asset that you can't possibly maintain alone. I'm maintaining it just fine, I interrupt. And I have plans for the property that don't include selling. She raises an eyebrow. What plans? For a moment, I consider telling her everything about the foundation, the Anderson property, Robert's vision for a community legacy, but something holds me back. Amanda isn't ready to hear this. She'd see it only as another threat to her inheritance, not as the meaningful continuation of her father's values that it truly is. Plans that honor your father's wishes, I say instead, which did not include selling this home anytime soon. She sighs dramatically. I understand you're still grieving, Mom, but eventually you'll have to be practical. Practical. I cut her off, tired of that particular word. You know, your father was the most practical person I've ever known. He built this house with his own hands to save money. He grew vegetables to reduce our grocery bills. He installed solar panels 20 years before they became popular to lower our electricity costs. Amanda blinks, thrown by my interruption. But he also understood that practicality isn't everything. I continue. That some things have value beyond their market price. This home was his gift to us, Amanda. To our family. It represents every dream we ever had, every sacrifice we made, every moment of love we shared. I know it has sentimental value, she begins. No, I say firmly. You don't know. If you did, you wouldn't be trying to sell it out from under me before your father is even cold in his grave. She flinches at my blunt words but recovers quickly. I'm trying to be responsible, to look ahead, to manage assets wisely. Assets. I shake my head sadly. That's how you see your childhood home? As an asset to be managed? What else would it be? She asks, genuinely puzzled. And there it is, the fundamental disconnect between us. Amanda sees the house as a financial asset, valuable only for the price it could command on the market. I see it as the physical embodiment of our family's love, dreams, and history. I found something yesterday, I say, changing tactics. Something your father kept for many years. She waits, expression guarded. The garden shed box, I tell her. Do you remember it? A flicker of something. Recognition, perhaps nostalgia, crosses her face before she controls it. Vaguely. Some old box where Dad kept childhood souvenirs, right? He kept every gift you ever gave him, I correct her. Every card, every craft project, every little treasure you found for him, from when you were barely old enough to hold a crayon until your high school graduation. She shifts uncomfortably on the swing. That's nice. Dad was always sentimental about that kind of thing. Yes, he was. I agree. Because he understood something you seem to have forgotten. That the most valuable things in life can't be bought or sold. They can only be given freely. From the heart. Amanda stands abruptly. I didn't come here for a lecture on values, Mom. I came to discuss next steps regarding the property. There are no next steps, I reply, also rising. The property stays as is. I'm living here. I have plans for it. End of discussion. Her face hardens. This isn't over. Dad's will can be challenged. His mental capacity during those final months could be questioned. The threat chills me, but I don't let it show. Is that really how you want to honor your father's memory? By claiming he wasn't of sound mind when he made provisions to protect the home he built for his family? She doesn't answer directly. Instead, she grabs her purse and starts down the porch steps. Derek's attorney will be in touch. This isn't personal, Mom, it's business. It's our family home, I call after her. It couldn't be more personal. She doesn't look back as she climbs into her BMW and speeds down the driveway. I sink back into the wicker chair, emotionally drained, but oddly clear-headed. Amanda's threat to challenge Robert's will is serious and hurtful in ways I can barely process. To suggest her father wasn't mentally competent, to use his illness as a weapon against his final wishes, it's beyond painful. But Robert anticipated this too. That's why he had Richard prepare that letter testifying to his mental clarity. That's why he documented everything so meticulously. He knew our daughter better than I wanted to admit. My gaze falls on the tube containing Robert's plans for the Anderson property renovation. I pick it up, deciding to look at them now, to connect with his final creative vision, while my conversation with Amanda is still fresh in my mind. Inside the house, I clear the dining table. Tentar novamente. Continuar elaboro estrategia narrativa para continuar drama emocional. I need to continue with Act 7, where it left off. It appears to have been cut off mid-sentence about clearing the dining table, and then complete the remaining Acts 8, 9, and 10 of this emotional drama script. The story follows Elizabeth Caldwell, who is dealing with her daughter Amanda's attempts to sell her lakefront home after Robert's, Elizabeth's husband, death. In Act 7, Elizabeth just discovered that Robert had purchased the neighboring Anderson property and established a foundation. Amanda has just threatened to challenge Robert's will and left, and Elizabeth was about to look at Robert's renovation plans for the Anderson property. I'll continue with the end of Act 7, showing Elizabeth examining the plans and fully understanding Robert's vision. Then I'll move on to Act 8, where she begins to prepare her counterattack, Act 9 with the final confrontation, and Act 10 with resolution and a meaningful conclusion. I'll maintain the emotional, descriptive writing style and continue developing Elizabeth's character arc as she finds her strength. I'll continue with the remaining acts of your emotional drama script. Inside the house, I clear the dining table and carefully unroll Robert's plans. They're hand-drawn on architectural paper, detailed sketches showing the boathouse transformation. His precise draftsmanship, so familiar after decades of watching him work, brings a fresh wave of grief. I trace my fingers over the pencil lines, feeling a connection to him through these final creative expressions. The plans are beautiful, thoughtful, and practical like everything Robert created. The lower level of the boathouse transforms into a community workshop with stations for woodworking, boat repair, and general construction. The upper level becomes offices for the foundation, with a conference room overlooking the lake, and smaller spaces for meetings with grant applicants or community members seeking support. Most touching is his attention to accessibility. Ramps instead of stairs, doorways wide enough for wheelchairs, adjustable height workbenches. Robert wanted this space to welcome everyone, regardless of physical ability. In the margins of the main drawings are smaller sketches, ideas for projects community members could build together, concepts for workshops, even furniture design specifically for the spaces. It's as if he poured every creative idea he couldn't physically realize during his illness into these plans. Tucked into the roll of drawings is an envelope with my name on it. Inside, I find a letter written in Robert's increasingly shaky handwriting from his final weeks. My dearest Lizzie, if you're reading this, you've discovered the Anderson property and the foundation. I'm sorry for keeping these plans from you while I was alive. I wanted to spare you Amanda's reaction, which I feared would only add stress during my illness. This foundation is my gift to you and to our community. Not just financial support for the causes we believe in, but meaningful work for you in the years ahead. I couldn't bear the thought of leaving you without purpose, without a reason to get up each morning and engage with the world. I've watched you pour your heart into our home, into raising our daughter, into supporting my dreams. Now it's your turn to build something that will outlast both of us, a legacy of the values we've shared throughout our life together. The foundation has funds not just for grants, but for the renovation itself. Richard has all the details and contacts for contractors I trust. You can modify these plans however you wish. They're just a starting point, a way for me to share the vision I wish we could have built together. When Amanda learns about this, she'll be angry. She'll see it as diminishing her inheritance rather than expanding our family legacy. But I have to believe, that someday she'll understand. That the daughter we raised is still in there somewhere, beneath the materialism and status-seeking that have clouded her values. The garden shed box may help. Remember it? Where I kept all her childhood gifts? Show her when the time is right. Remind her of who she was, of what really matters. I'm so sorry to leave this burden on your shoulders, my love. If I could have one more year, one more month with you, I would use it to face these difficult conversations myself. But time hasn't been granted to us. Know that I trust you completely. Your strength, your wisdom, your compassion. These are why I know the foundation will thrive in your hands. You've always been the true heart of our family, even when you let me take the lead. All my love, today and always, Robert. Tears stream down my face as I read his words, feeling his presence so strongly it's almost tangible. He knew. He understood everything. Amanda's materialism, my reluctance to confront it, the potential for conflict after his death. And still, he created this beautiful vision, this meaningful path forward, not just for the community, but for me, a purpose beyond grief, a way to honor his memory through action rather than just preservation. For the first time since his death, I feel something new breaking through the fog of loss, possibility, the chance to build something meaningful, to continue Robert's legacy in a way that looks forward rather than back. Amanda's threat to challenge the will still looms, but it feels less frightening now. Robert prepared for that too. And besides, I have something more powerful than legal documents. I have purpose, direction, a vision to fight for that's larger than just protecting my right to remain in our home. I carefully roll the plans back into their tube, Robert's letter tucked safely inside. Tomorrow, I'll visit the Anderson property again, start making notes about the renovation, perhaps even contact some of the contractors Robert recommended. But tonight, I'll sit on the dock as the sun sets over the lake, and I'll talk to Robert as I've done every evening since his death. I'll tell him I found his plans, discovered his foundation, understood his vision. I'll thank him for this final, precious gift, not just financial security, but meaningful work that connects me to him and to the community we both love. And I'll make him a promise that his legacy will live on, not just in our home, but in the lives touched by the foundation that bears our name. That's a promise worth fighting for. The next 2 weeks pass in a flurry of activity unlike anything I've experienced since Robert's diagnosis. Each morning, I wake with purpose, my grief still present but no longer paralyzing. There's work to be done, a legacy to build, a vision to defend. Richard introduces me to Jessica Torres, a property attorney specializing in elder rights, one of the names Robert included in his letter of instruction. She's in her 40s, sharp-eyed and direct, with a reputation for fiercely protecting older adults from financial exploitation, even by family members. "I'll be honest, Mrs. Caldwell," she says during our first meeting in her downtown office. "These cases are messy, emotionally draining, and can drag on for months or even years. I understand," I tell her. "But my husband's wishes were clear, both in his will and in his plans for the foundation. I intend to honor them." Jessica nods approvingly. "That's the attitude you'll need. Now, let's talk strategy." We spend hours going over potential challenges Amanda might raise. Claims of diminished capacity, undue influence, even suggestions that I myself am no longer competent to manage the estate. Jessica takes meticulous notes, occasionally asking pointed questions about Robert's mental state in his final months, about witnesses to the will's signing, about any statements he might have made to others about his intentions. "The good news," she says after reviewing all the documentation, "is that Robert did everything by the book. Multiple witnesses to the will, medical evaluations confirming his mental competence, clear, consistent statements about his intentions to different people over time. He was always methodical, I say, a sad smile touching my lips. It serves you well now, Jessica assures me. But we need to be prepared for Amanda to play hardball. From what you've told me, she feels entitled to this inheritance and won't give up easily. I nod. The reality of what I'm facing, a protracted legal battle with my only child, settling heavily on my shoulders despite my newfound resolve. Is there anything else that might help our case? Jessica asks. Any documentation of Amanda's behavior or statements that demonstrate her interest is purely financial, rather than concern for your welfare. I think of Amanda's words at the funeral, her immediate push to sell the house, her sneaking in to catalog valuables. I have several witnesses to things she said, I offer, and she sent a real estate agent to my house without my permission. Jessica makes more notes. Good. And what about this foundation Robert established? How does Amanda feel about that? She doesn't know yet, I admit. I haven't told her. Jessica looks up sharply. She'll need to be informed eventually. It significantly impacts her expected inheritance. I know, I sigh. I'm waiting for the right moment. Right now, she's focused on selling the house. Learning about the foundation will only escalate things. Fair enough, Jessica agrees. But start preparing for that conversation. It won't be easy. On the days I don't have legal meetings, I focus on the Anderson property. With Richard's help, I contact the contractors Robert recommended. They come one by one to walk through the boathouse, review his plans, discuss timelines and budgets. Most knew Robert personally. He had a talent for finding skilled craftspeople who shared his commitment to quality work. Marcus Johnson, the carpenter Robert trusted most, spends a full day with me examining the structure, testing the soundness of beams, assessing what can be salvaged and what needs replacing. Robert had a good eye, he comments, running weathered hands along the original wood paneling on the second floor. This is all salvageable. Clean it, reseal it. It'll be beautiful for another 100 years. That's what he would have wanted, I say. To preserve what's worth keeping. Replace only what's necessary. Marcus nods in understanding. That was Robert's way with buildings. And with people too. The comment takes me by surprise. You knew him well? 20 years, Marcus confirms, moving to examine a window frame. He helped me get my business off the ground when I was just a kid with some tools and no credentials. Taught me half of what I know about fine carpentry. Another connection I hadn't fully appreciated. Another life Robert had touched. Another relationship I can maintain in his absence. Tell me about working with him, I request, hungry for these glimpses of my husband through others' eyes. As Marcus works, he shares stories. Robert's insistence on doing things right rather than quickly. His patience with Marcus's early mistakes. His pride when a project turned out exactly as envisioned. It's like discovering new facets of a familiar gem, seeing Robert through the perspective of someone who knew a different side of him than I did. By the end of the 2 weeks, I have a renovation plan for the boathouse, complete with timeline and budget. I have legal strategies in place for any challenges Amanda might bring. I've met with the foundation's financial advisors, begun learning about grant-making processes, started envisioning programs we might support. Throughout it all, I've maintained my daily rituals of grief and remembrance. Morning coffee on the dock, evening conversations with Robert as the sun sets, nights spent with his pillow close. But now these moments of looking back are balanced with hours spent looking forward, building something new from the foundation he laid. I'm in the midst of reviewing contractor bids when my phone rings. Amanda's name appears on the screen. My stomach tightens. We haven't spoken since her threat to challenge the will 2 weeks ago. I consider letting it go to voicemail, but decide against avoidance. Better to know what she's planning than to wonder. Hello, Amanda. Mom. Her voice sounds different, less commanding, perhaps even hesitant. I was hoping we could talk, in person. About the house? I ask warily. About everything. She pauses. Could I come over tomorrow? Around 11? I'm surprised by the request and the tone. All right. 11 tomorrow. Thank you. Another pause. I'll see you then. She hangs up before I can respond. I set the phone down slowly, puzzled by this unexpected development. Is this a new strategy? A softer approach when threats didn't work? Or something else entirely? I call Sarah to share my concerns. Be careful, she warns. She might be trying a different angle, but the goal could still be the same, getting you to sell. I know, I agree, but I have to hear what she has to say. Want me to be there? Sarah offers. Moral support? I consider it, then decline. No, I think this needs to be between Amanda and me. But thank you. After we hang up, I go to Robert's office and sit in his chair, trying to think as he would. What would he advise in this situation? He always saw the best in people, always gave second chances, but he was never naive. He'd prepared meticulously for Amanda's potential challenges to his will, while still hoping she might eventually understand his choices. My gaze falls on a framed photo on his desk. Amanda at about 10, sitting on the dock with her arm around Robert, both of them grinning after catching a particularly large bass. Her eyes, so like his, shine with uncomplicated joy and love. That girl is still in there somewhere. Robert believed it, or he wouldn't have mentioned the garden shed box, wouldn't have hoped the foundation might eventually reconnect her with our family's values. I check the time, nearly sunset. I gather my courage in the garden shed box, then walk down to the dock for my evening conversation with Robert. The lake is calm tonight, reflecting the oranges and pinks of the setting sun in a perfect mirror image. Two loons call to each other in the distance, their haunting cries echoing across the water. She's coming tomorrow, I tell Robert, setting the box beside me. I don't know what to expect, but I'll try to remember what you believed, that the daughter we raised is still in there somewhere. A gentle breeze ruffles my hair, almost like a loving touch. I smile, feeling his presence in the beauty around me. I miss your counsel, I admit, but I think I know what you'd say. Listen first. Give her a chance. Remember that she's grieving too, in her own way. I open the garden shed box, looking at the childhood treasures inside, tangible reminders of who Amanda once was, of the values she once embraced so naturally. I'll try to reach her, I promise Robert and myself, not just to protect our home, but to reconnect her with what it represents, with who she really is beneath all those designer clothes and status symbols. As darkness falls, I close the box and return to the house, preparing myself for whatever tomorrow might bring. Amanda arrives precisely at 11, her BMW purring up the driveway just as the grandfather clock in the hall chimes the hour. Always punctual. She got that from Robert. I watch through the living room window as she approaches the house. Something seems different about her today. Her posture less rigid, her pace less purposeful. She's dressed more casually than I've seen in years. Simple black pants and a blue blouse rather than her usual power suits or designer dresses. I open the door before she knocks. Good morning, Amanda. Mom. She hesitates, then leans in for a brief, awkward hug, the first physical contact between us since Robert's funeral. Thank you for seeing me. I lead her to the living room, where I've set out coffee and the blueberry muffins she loved as a child. She notices the touch, a flicker of something, recognition, perhaps nostalgia, crossing her face before she composes herself. How have you been? She asks, taking a seat on the couch. Her father's spot, though she doesn't know the significance. Busy, actually, I reply, pouring coffee into Robert's favorite mug for her. And you? She accepts the mug with a nod of thanks. Also busy. Work is demanding. We sip our coffee in awkward silence for a moment, neither quite sure how to navigate this conversation after weeks of conflict. I owe you an apology, she says suddenly, setting her mug down. For the things I said at church, for sending that real estate agent, for going through your things without permission. The apology catches me off guard. What brought this on? She looks down at her hands, manicured but not as elaborately as usual, I notice. Derek and I have been talking. He thinks I've been too aggressive about the house situation. So this is Derek's influence. Not quite a genuine change of heart then. I see, I say neutrally. It's not just that, she adds quickly, perhaps sensing my skepticism. I've been doing some thinking. About Dad, about what he would want. I wait, giving her space to continue. The attorney I consulted. She pauses, seeming to choose her words carefully. He said challenging the will would be difficult. Dad's documentation was very thorough. Of course it was. Robert never did anything halfway. He also said it would be, she swallows visibly, ugly, publicly accusing Dad of mental incapacity, questioning his judgment, dragging our family business through probate court. Yes, I agree quietly. It would be all those things. She brushes an invisible crumb from her pants. I don't want that. For any of us. Especially not for Sophia. Her daughter. My granddaughter. The child I barely know because Amanda has kept her at arm's length. How is Sophia? I ask, genuinely interested. Something softens in Amanda's expression. She's good, growing so fast, starting 3rd grade in the fall. I'd like to see her more, I say simply. Amanda nods but doesn't commit. The thing is, Mom, I've decided not to challenge the will. You can stay in the house for as long as you want. Relief floods through me, followed immediately by suspicion. This capitulation seems too sudden, too complete. What made you change your mind? I ask directly. She fidgets with her coffee mug. Like I said, the legal battle would be ugly and expensive. And I found something in Dad's desk at the Greenwich House. The Greenwich House. The mansion she and Derek bought when they married, where Robert and I have visited only a handful of times. Dad had an office there, she explains, seeing my confusion. Just a small room he used when he visited. I never went through his things after he died. It seemed unimportant compared to his main office here. Now she reaches for her purse, removing a sealed envelope. I found this last week. It's addressed to me, in Dad's handwriting. My heart beats faster. Another letter. Another piece of Robert's foresight. His planning for every contingency. Have you opened it? I ask. She shakes her head. I wanted to. I don't know. Wait until I was ready. And are you? Ready? Amanda takes a deep breath. I think so. Her fingers tremble slightly as she breaks the seal and unfolds the single sheet of paper inside. She reads silently, her expression changing from apprehension to surprise, to something more complex. Grief, perhaps? Or regret? After a long moment, she looks up, eyes shining with unshed tears. Would you like to read it? I nod, accepting the letter with careful hands. My dear Amanda, if you're reading this, 2 things have happened. I've lost my battle with cancer, and you're considering challenging my will to gain control of the lake house. I know you, sweetheart. I know how your mind works, how you weigh everything in terms of financial value and practical advantages. I know you see the lake house as an underutilized asset that could be converted to cash. What you don't see, what you haven't seen for many years, is what that house really represents. It isn't just wood and glass and stone. It's the physical embodiment of every sacrifice your mother and I made to give you a stable, loving home. It's every weekend I spent building instead of relaxing. Every vacation we didn't take because the money went into materials. Every extra shift I worked to afford the next phase of construction. We did it all gladly, without resentment, because we were building something that mattered. A place where our family could put down roots, where you could grow up connected to nature and community, where we could grow old surrounded by memories. I've watched with sadness as you've drifted from these values, as designer labels replaced handmade gifts, as status symbols became more important than meaningful connections. I've wondered many times where your mother and I went wrong, what we failed to teach you about what truly matters in life. But I've never stopped believing that the daughter we raised, the girl who collected shells on the lakeshore and helped me build birdhouses and cried when injured animals couldn't be saved, is still inside you somewhere. The girl who understood intuitively that the most valuable things in life can't be bought or sold. I've made provisions to protect your mother and our home because I know she values it as I do, not for its market price, but for the life we built within its walls. I hope someday you'll understand that this decision wasn't about denying you an inheritance, but about preserving something more precious than money. Look in the bottom drawer of this desk. There's a small wooden box with your name carved on the lid. Open it. Remember who you were, who you still are beneath all the trappings of wealth and status. I love you, Amanda. Not the person you pretend to be for your wealthy friends, but the real you. Compassionate, creative, connected to what truly matters. I hope someday you'll find your way back to her. All my love, Dad. I fold the letter carefully, my vision blurred with tears. Even from the grave, Robert is trying to reach our daughter, to remind her of who she really is beneath the polished exterior. There was a box, Amanda says softly, just like he said, full of things I'd forgotten, drawings I made him, little notes, a bracelet of lake stones I strung for his birthday when I was 8. Her voice breaks slightly. I didn't know he kept all those things. He kept everything you ever gave him, I tell her. Here too, in the garden shed box. Her eyes widen in recognition. The one with my name carved on the lid? He still has that? Had, I correct gently. But yes, I found it after the funeral. It's filled with your gifts, your cards, your childhood treasures. Amanda looks away, blinking rapidly. I remember making those things, being so proud to give them to him, watching his face light up like I'd handed him gold instead of a rock or a crayon drawing. Because to him, they were more valuable than gold, I say. They were pieces of your heart. She's quiet for a long moment, staring out the window at the lake glittering in the spring sunshine. I've forgotten so much, she finally whispers, about this place, about who I was here. You haven't been back much, I observe, keeping my tone neutral rather than accusatory. It's been easier to stay away, she admits, to pretend this part of my life was, I don't know, less real than my life in Greenwich, in New York, in the circles Derek and I move in. Why? I ask simply. She considers the question, perhaps really thinking about it for the first time. Because coming back reminds me of how far I've drifted from who I used to be, from what used to matter to me. She gestures around the living room with its comfortable, well-worn furniture, its walls covered with family photos, its shelves filled with books we've read and reread. All this felt obsolete, like I'd outgrown it. Some things are timeless, I suggest. Like family, like home, like knowing who you really are beneath the roles you play. Amanda nods slowly, her gaze returning to the lake. Derek and I are having problems, she says abruptly. Have been for a while now. This confession surprises me. Amanda has always presented her marriage as perfect, her life in Greenwich as enviable. I'm sorry to hear that, I say, meaning it. He's never home, always working, or working. She makes air quotes around the word. The nanny spends more time with Sophia than either of us. It explains her sudden capitulation about the will, her newfound introspection. A marriage in trouble has a way of forcing reassessment of what truly matters. What are you going to do? I ask. She shrugs, a gesture so reminiscent of her teenage self that it makes my heart ache. I don't know. Try counseling, maybe. For Sophia's sake, if nothing else. A silence falls between us. Not comfortable yet, but no longer tense with hostility. There's something I need to tell you, I say finally, knowing this moment of vulnerability may be my best opportunity. About your father's plans. About the future of this property. Amanda tenses visibly, perhaps expecting news of more restrictions on her inheritance. I take a deep breath and tell her everything. About the foundation, the Anderson property, the renovation plans for the boathouse, Robert's vision for a community legacy. To my surprise, she listens without interruption, her expression shifting from wariness to curiosity to something almost like interest as I describe the foundation's mission and the community workshop space. So, a significant portion of the estate goes to this foundation, she says when I finish. Not to me. Yes, I confirm, not sugarcoating the reality. Your father believed that wealth brings responsibility, to give back, to strengthen community, to support others as he was supported growing up. She nods slowly. The funny thing is, I used to believe that too. In college, I volunteered at a literacy program, teaching adults to read. It was one of the most meaningful things I've ever done. This is news to me. I didn't know that. I never told you, she admits. By then, I was already trying to reinvent myself, to fit in with classmates from wealthy backgrounds. Volunteer work didn't match the image I was creating. Another silence falls, this one thoughtful rather than awkward. I'd like to see the plans, Amanda says suddenly, for the boathouse renovation, for the foundation. I blink in surprise. You would? Yes. She meets my eyes directly for the first time today. I'd like to understand Dad's vision better, to see what he was planning. The request seems genuine, free of hidden motives. I stand. I have the plans in his office, and the keys to the Anderson property, if you'd like to see it in person. I would, she says, rising as well. Very much. We spend the next 2 hours going through Robert's plans, walking the Anderson property, discussing his vision for the foundation and community workshop. Amanda asks thoughtful questions, offers occasional suggestions, seems genuinely engaged with the concept rather than focused on its impact on her inheritance. Standing on the second-floor deck of the boathouse, looking out over the lake, she says suddenly, I could help, with the foundation. I have experience with nonprofit governance through some of the charity boards I've served on. I could be useful. The offer stuns me. You'd want to be involved? She turns to face me, the breeze from the lake ruffling her carefully styled hair. I think I'd like to try to connect with this part of Dad's legacy, to remember who I was before. She gestures vaguely toward the direction of Greenwich. Before status and wealth became the measure of success? I suggest gently. She nods, a hint of the vulnerability she so rarely shows visible in her eyes. Something like that. I don't rush to accept her offer. Trust, once broken, requires time to rebuild. Let's start slowly, I suggest. Perhaps you could review the foundation bylaws, offer your expertise on the governance structure. I'd like that. She agrees, seeming to understand my caution. And maybe Sophia could visit more often, get to know her grandmother, learn to fish from the dock like I did. The suggestion brings unexpected tears to my eyes. I'd love that more than anything. As we walk back toward the house, Amanda hesitant and quiet beside me, I feel something shift between us. Not a complete healing, not yet, but the beginning of a possible new path. A reconnection not just with me, but with the parts of herself she suppressed for so long. At the house, she pauses before leaving. I meant what I said earlier. I won't challenge the will. The house is yours for as long as you want it. Thank you, I say simply. And Mom? She looks at me with an expression I haven't seen in years. Uncertain, almost vulnerable. I'm sorry. For everything. For the things I said at the funeral. For trying to sell your home out from under you. For forgetting what this place means. The apology feels genuine this time. Born not of strategic calculation, but of real reflection. I appreciate that, I tell her. And I hope we can find a new way forward from here. She nods, her eyes shifting to the lake visible through the living room windows. I'd like to try. After she leaves, I sit on the porch swing, processing everything that's happened. The confrontation I feared has turned into something unexpected. Not a complete reconciliation. Not yet. But perhaps the first tentative steps toward understanding. Robert would be pleased, I think. He believed so firmly in second chances, in the power of love to bridge even the widest divides. He never gave up hope that Amanda would find her way back to the values we raised her with. I don't know if today represents a genuine turning point, or merely a temporary softening due to her marital troubles. Trust will take time to rebuild. Actions, not words, will show her true intentions. But for the first time since Robert's death, I feel a cautious hope about my relationship with our daughter. Hope that the foundation might indeed serve its deeper purpose, not just supporting community projects, but reconnecting Amanda with her authentic self, with the legacy of values her father tried so hard to instill. As the sun begins its descent toward the horizon, I make my way to the dock for my evening conversation with Robert. The air is warm with late spring, the lake a perfect mirror reflecting the deepening blue of the sky. You were right, I tell him, sitting in the Adirondack chair he built decades ago. She's still in there, our Amanda, beneath all those layers of pretense and ambition. I saw glimpses of her today. A fish jumps nearby, sending ripples across the glassy surface of the lake. I don't know if it will last, I continue, if this change is real or temporary, but I think you'd be pleased that we're trying, that there's at least a chance for healing. The evening breeze carries the scent of pine and clear water, as familiar and comforting as Robert's embrace. For the first time since his death, I feel something like peace settling over me, not the absence of grief, which I know will always be my companion, but the presence of possibility alongside it. The possibility of rebuilding a relationship with our daughter, of carrying forward Robert's legacy through the foundation, of finding meaningful purpose in the years ahead. As darkness falls and the first stars appear overhead, I make my way back to the house, our house, the home Robert built for us, the place that will remain mine for as long as I want it. Tonight, that feels like the victory it truly is. 3 months have passed since that pivotal conversation with Amanda. Spring has given way to summer, the lakeside property lush with greenery, the water warm enough for swimming on hot afternoons. I sit on the newly rebuilt dock, watching Sophia attempt to bait her own fishing hook under Sarah's patient guidance. My granddaughter has visited every other weekend this summer, a schedule Amanda suggested, and has maintained with surprising consistency. "Grandma, look!" Sophia calls, holding up her hook with a worm successfully threaded onto it. "I did it myself. Well done," I call back, smiling at her beaming face, so like Amanda's at that age. so full of pride in her accomplishment. Sarah gives me a thumbs up behind Sophia's back. My oldest friend has become something of a surrogate grandmother figure when Amanda isn't here, teaching Sophia the lake skills that were once Amanda's passion: fishing, swimming, identifying birds and plants. The construction crew working on the boathouse renovation takes a lunch break, their hammers and saws falling silent. The project is progressing well, following Robert's plans with only minor modifications. The community workshop space is nearly complete on the lower level, with the foundation offices upstairs about halfway finished. Marcus, the carpenter Robert mentored, walks over to the dock, wiping sweat from his brow. "Those windows your husband specified for the east wall arrived this morning," he tells me. "Worth the wait. The view of the sunrise from the second floor is going to be spectacular." "He always did think of everything," I reply with a sad smile. Marcus nods in understanding. "We're still on track for completion by Labor Day," he assures me. "Ready for that grand opening you're planning." The grand opening, a community celebration to introduce the Caldwell Community Trust and its facilities to Lakewood. The foundation board, which now includes Richard, Sarah, 2 local business owners Robert respected, and, somewhat surprisingly, Amanda, has been planning the event for weeks. "Thanks, Marcus. It's looking beautiful." He tips his hat and heads back to join his crew as they finish their lunch. I marvel again at how Robert's influence reverberates through this community, in the skilled craftsmen he mentored, in the foundation that will continue his quiet philanthropy, in the renovated boathouse that will serve generations to come. My phone buzzes with a text from Amanda. "Board meeting still on for Thursday? Have ideas for the mentorship program." I type back a quick confirmation, still adjusting to this new, more engaged version of my daughter. Her transformation hasn't been dramatic or complete. She still lives in Greenwich, still moves in wealthy social circles, still dresses in designer clothes. But she's shown genuine interest in the foundation, contributing thoughtful ideas for programs, and putting her business acumen to good use in establishing governance structures. Most importantly, she's reconnecting with Sophia, spending more time with her daughter instead of leaving her primarily in the care of nannies and tutors. Their weekends at the lake house have become a regular rhythm, a time for both of them to step away from the pressures and pretensions of their Greenwich life. Derek has come only once, clearly uncomfortable with the simplicity of lake living, with the lack of country club amenities and networking opportunities. The strain in their marriage remains evident, though Amanda speaks of it less directly now than during that first vulnerable conversation. "Can I go swimming after lunch, Grandma?" Sophia calls, setting down her fishing rod without having caught anything. "Of course," I reply. "Sarah will go with you." As they pack up the fishing gear, I lean back in my chair, face turned to the summer sun. At 78, my joints protest more than they used to, but I still manage to swim most days, to walk the property Robert and I shaped together over decades. The last 3 months have brought challenges alongside the healing. There have been difficult conversations with Amanda about the foundation, about her inheritance, about our expectations for each other going forward. There have been moments when old patterns threaten to reassert themselves, her impatience with my impractical attachment to certain traditions, my frustration with her continuing focus on appearances and status. But we're trying, both of us, finding our way toward a new relationship based not on the past or on future expectations, but on the present reality of who we are now. A grieving widow discovering new purpose, a woman in midlife reassessing her values and priorities. After lunch, I watch from the porch swing as Sarah and Sophia splash in the shallow water near the shore. My granddaughter's laughter carries across the lawn, a sound that would have delighted Robert immeasurably. "He'd love this," says a voice beside me. I turn to find Amanda standing there, having arrived early for the weekend. She's dressed more casually these days when visiting the lake. Linen pants and simple blouses rather than tailored suits or designer dresses. "He would," I agree, making room for her on the swing. She sits beside me, her gaze on her daughter in the water. I keep finding pieces of him everywhere. In Sophia's laugh, in the way she studies insects with complete concentration, in the workshop plans with every detail considered. "He's still with us," I say simply. "In all those ways and more." Amanda nods, silent for a moment. "Derek and I are separating," she says finally, her voice steady. "Trial separation for now, but I think we both know where it's headed." I'm not entirely surprised. The strain between them has been evident, but I'm concerned for her, for Sophia. "I'm sorry," I say, meaning it. She shrugs slightly. It's been coming for a long time. We want different things. Always have, probably. But I was too caught up in the lifestyle to notice. What will you do? I ask. I found an apartment in Stamford, she tells me. Smaller, simpler, but close enough to Greenwich that Sophia can stay in her school. She'll split time between us. And your job? I'm keeping it for now. I'm good at what I do, whatever else has changed. A hint of her old confidence surfaces. But I'm setting boundaries. No more 60-hour weeks. No more missing Sophia's school events for client meetings. I nod, recognizing the challenge she's setting for herself. Changing priorities mid-career, especially in the competitive financial world she inhabits, won't be easy. And I'd like to spend more time here, she adds, glancing at me sideways as if uncertain of my reaction. Not just weekends with Sophia, but helping with the foundation, being part of what Dad started. The request touches me deeply. I'd like that very much, I tell her. This will always be your home too, Amanda. However much you've changed, however far you've traveled. She smiles, a genuine smile that reaches her eyes, making her look momentarily like the girl who once collected shells along this lakeshore. I forgot that for a while, tried to pretend I'd outgrown this place, these roots. And now, she watches Sophia climb onto the dock, preparing to jump back into the water with an exuberant splash. Now I'm remembering what matters, what's always mattered, beneath all the trappings and titles. We sit in companionable silence for a few minutes, the porch swing swaying gently, the sounds of summer, cicadas buzzing, water lapping at the shore, Sophia's delighted shrieks as she jumps into the lake, creating a peaceful backdrop. There's something I've been wanting to ask you, Amanda says finally. The garden shed box, the one Dad kept with all my childhood things. Could we look through it together? I'd like to remember more clearly who I was then. The request brings unexpected tears to my eyes. I'd like that very much, I managed to say. It's inside, on the mantel. I've been keeping it there since finding it after the funeral. We spend the next hour sitting on the living room floor like we used to do with photo albums when Amanda was small, going through the contents of the wooden box Robert made with such care. Each item prompts a memory. The clay pot she made in 2nd grade, the Mother's Day card with a handprint flower, the fishing hook she learned to bait herself. I was so proud of that, Amanda says, holding the carefully wrapped hook. Being brave enough to put the worm on myself. Dad made such a big deal of it. He was proud of you, I tell her. Not just for the hook, but for trying something that scared you, for persisting until you succeeded. She turns the hook in her fingers, her expression thoughtful. I need to remember to praise Sophia for effort, not just results, for trying difficult things, not just achieving easy ones. It's a parenting insight I hadn't expected from her, an awareness of how values are transmitted through what we celebrate, what we acknowledge as important. Your father would agree completely, I tell her. He always said the process matters more than the product. We continue through the box, each item reconnecting Amanda with aspects of herself she's suppressed or forgotten over the years. By the time we finish, something has shifted in her expression, a softening, a remembering, perhaps even a reclaiming of parts of herself lost in the pursuit of status and wealth. Thank you, she says simply, helping me return the items to their box, for keeping these things, for being patient with me, for not giving up on me even when I was being difficult. I'm your mother, I reply. That doesn't change, no matter what. She nods, understanding the depth of what I'm saying. I want to be that kind of mother to Sophia, the kind who sees who she really is, not who I want her to be. It's perhaps the most profound thing she's said in years, an acknowledgement of her own parenting shortcomings, a commitment to something better. The remainder of the weekend unfolds in a gentle rhythm of lake activities, foundation planning, and simple meals together. Amanda helps Sophia build a sandcastle on the small beach area, shows her how to skip stones across the water's surface, identifies constellations as they appear in the evening sky, all experiences from her own childhood now passed to the next generation. On Sunday evening, as they prepare to return to Greenwich for the last few weeks before their move to Stamford, Amanda pauses on the porch steps. I've been thinking about the foundation's opening ceremony, she says. What if we created a scholarship in Dad's name for students interested in skilled trades, carpentry, plumbing, electrical work, the kind of practical skills he valued so highly. The suggestion reveals how much she's internalized Robert's values over these past months. His respect for skilled craftsmanship, his belief in the dignity of working with one's hands, his commitment to creating opportunities for those with limited financial resources. "That's a wonderful idea," I tell her. "He would be so pleased." She smiles, a genuine expression that transforms her face. I think so too. After they leave, I make my way to the dock for my evening conversation with Robert. The ritual has evolved over the months since his death. Less raw grief now, more reflective appreciation, more sharing of daily events I know would interest him. Amanda suggested a trade scholarship in your name. I tell him as the sun sets in a blaze of orange and pink over the western shore. For students who want to learn the skills you valued so highly. She's remembering Robert, finding her way back to what matters. The lake ripples gently in the evening breeze, reflecting the changing colors of the sky. In a few weeks, the boathouse renovation will be complete. The foundation officially launched. A new chapter begun. Not just for me, but for Amanda, for Sophia, for the community Robert loved so deeply. Life continues to evolve, to present new challenges and unexpected joys. The grief of losing Robert remains, a companion I've learned to live with rather than an enemy to be vanquished. But alongside it now flourishes something else. Purpose, connection, even occasion.